Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mic with Hunt and Withrow underway on the Thursday edition. Glad you're with us. That includes the YouTube live feed right now. You can join us there by searching out OutKick. Subscribe to the channel and join Chad in the chat. All social media platforms as well as OutKick.com. Plus, if you're listening to this great radio partner, we say thank you. Big show planned today. Trey Wallace of OutKick.com, our senior reporter for college football. He'll be with us in 20 minutes. And Armando Salguero, also of OutKick, joins us to talk all things NFL coming up in hour number 2. John Brice of FootballScoop.com with the added on report following what has been a litany of detail involving the investigation of Michigan football and sign stealing, Connor Stallions, and more. John joins us in hour number 2. Plus, Ryan Leaf back on the show this week. We'll preview a number of NFL and college football matchups, including the one he'll be calling, the cocktail party, Georgia and Florida. Chad, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Hutton. Excited about today's show. So much scandal out there. So much scandal.
And detail. You know, it continues to pile on, and it's more than just Connor Stallions went to a handful of games to steal some signs and report back to the offensive and defensive coordinator. There are now details and reports surfacing of something far a layer or two deeper into where we were just 24 hours ago, where it may not just be Connor Stallions giving his information to Michigan. It could be Michigan possibly handing over their information on signs to teams that would be facing potential college football playoff opponents, Chad.
Well, let's try to unravel this. The web we weave when we aim to deceive. And that is what is happening right now with Michigan. And the tentacles of this thing continue to stretch across America. This is not just an isolated Michigan story or an isolated Big Ten story. This now has national ramifications when you start to connect the dots about what may be going on here. So let's go back to January of 2023. January of 2023 is when Matt Weiss, at the time the Michigan quarterbacks coach, who is a former third-string punter from Vanderbilt, he started to be investigated for computer crimes of some sort or unlawful use of university computers. Everyone's mind immediately goes to the worst-case scenario when you hear something like that, someone coming in and confiscating a hard drive, right? But what turns out to happen in this case is Weiss is fired, and he's fired, according to the USA Today, for some sort of illegal login activity on other people's devices or something that went down with that. Now, there is an outside counsel that's involved in something like this that's going through, and they're sifting through all the data on the computers of Michigan football and everything else that goes into it. So now Matt Weiss is gone. Let's fast forward to yesterday, late in the day, where the Washington Post has a story about, I think it's the Washington Post. I'm trying to keep the Sports Illustrated report and the Washington Post story separate. Washington Post has a story that details a law firm is the beginning of this investigation. That it was a law firm, does not mention the law firm who it was, but that a law firm turned over information to the NCAA, and one day after that information was submitted, boom, investigation launched by both the Big Ten and the NCAA. So one could think that there is a connection between all of the information that was gathered in the Matt Weiss investigation that ended up with him being out, and then leads back to a few days back where Jim Harbaugh and Michigan are under investigation for illegally scouting opponents. So we've said this throughout, but there seems to be some pretty hard-level evidence that something went on here. And this is yet another example of that. Sports Illustrated has the story that details text messages from our friend Connor Stallions with a buddy of his that was turned over by the buddy that, as of 4 years ago, 2019, 2020, into COVID and after, he was bragging about doing his own research on opponents and giving information to Michigan's football program that helped them win games, I believe, during the 2020 COVID season. Now, fast forward a year later, he's hired in an official capacity at the University of Michigan. Now, watching a television feed or watching an All-22, and if you can come up with something, it's frowned upon, but it's not expressly prohibited within the NCAA rule
There's
book.
no investigation.
Right. Going on site and buying up tickets in the front row and videoing the entire game, that's a big no-no in terms of scouting and trying to steal signs. And that's what he's being accused of. And then all this happens. There's a talk of a Michigan manifesto. I've long asked, how do you get to write how does a journal entry go to a manifesto? Now we know. Connor Stallions wrote a manifesto about how he and his buddies were going to take over and run Michigan football, and detailed exactly how they were going to do it. This is a pretty smart, ambitious guy, by the way, because part of the things that he did was he went and he got information from the Naval Academy on every Michigan recruit and everyone they would ever think about recruiting, and had grade information going way back, standardized test scores, and he offered this as what he called a product to Michigan in an effort to essentially say they don't know what they need until I show it to them. And when he showed this to the Michigan staff, they found this guy to be useful and eventually hired him on as what later turned out to be, maybe not completely by title, but a director of intelligence for Michigan football. And now I'm going to bring Davey Hudson on, because the last part of this, and this is where this scandal goes national, is the implication that comes in a story from John Brice of footballscoop.com. We will have John Brice on this program a little bit later, and we're going to talk to him about this. But the implication and the report that Michigan not only scouted these opponents, but possibly aided the opposition of their possible opposition in the college football playoff in an effort to knock them out of the running of the college football playoff. Davey Hudson with us now. Davey, it's not that difficult to connect the dots here to South Carolina and Shane Beamer and the last two opponents of the season. And you've done a little bit of digging on this, and it didn't take a lot of digging. It just took looking at schedules and basing all of it off reports that are already out there.
Yes, so, Chad, as it relates to Michigan, if you were to go back to the date, November 15th, 2022, that's whenever the college football playoff rankings came out. And if you look at the top 10, you currently had 4 undefeated teams in the country at this point. You had Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and TCU. Now, when you think about it, Ohio State, Michigan, they're going to have to play each other. But what happens in this scenario if Michigan loses and you're a one-loss team not playing in your conference championship? You're going to need some help in order to still make the college football playoff. There are 3 one-loss teams currently still left in the top 10 at this point. You have Tennessee, who was 5th. You have Clemson, who was 9th, and USC, who was 7th. Now, when you're looking at this, USC still has a very difficult schedule left. They still have to play Notre Dame. They still have to play Utah again, and UCLA, who was ranked at the time. So the odds of them winning out, very slim. But if you were to look at Tennessee and Clemson's schedule, they do not have many difficult opponents left. Now, the big thing for Tennessee in this situation is we know that Connor Stallions went to watch Tennessee play Kentucky, or at least his minions, on October 29th. So they have already scouted Tennessee. We have proven that based off all this evidence from the Sports Illustrated article. But the one common opponent that Tennessee and Clemson both have, South Carolina. Both of those teams would likely have the advantage over Michigan if they were, in fact, to lose to Ohio State, and all these teams have one loss. Now, if you look at it from just, hey, had South Carolina been very good, Tennessee, what's going to happen there? The week before South Carolina played Tennessee, they scored 6 points. They turned that around and scored 63.
Yeah, and also, Dave, you sent this to us earlier, but this is from Gators Reddit, the Florida Gators Reddit page. That posted this on X and said, surprise, Vol, Twitter isn't running with this more. The week following this alleged scouting, the South Carolina defense wore wristbands for the first time all year. Would not be the first time that Shane Beamer's gotten into trouble for accepting and using stolen information. And there's a link to a story from the AP from 2016 where Georgia fined then assistant coach Shane Beamer $25,000 for accepting leaked game plan information while at Virginia Tech 2 years prior in 2014 during that scandal. So this would not be Shane Beamer's first time accepting intelligence on an opponent in order to gain an advantage, if in fact this was the case. Look.
And the key with this is they followed that game up by beating Clemson.
Yep. Another opponent scouted by the signs
So
were
it's not
stolen
just
or scouted.
one coincidence.
Right. It was nutty, that game against Tennessee, because South Carolina the week before, as the poster mentioned, got destroyed by Florida, who was not very good last year. They were reeling offensively, and suddenly they were a juggernaut on both offense and defense for a big portion of that game. Defensive players wearing wristbands for the first time. Look, we have no knowledge of this. There's not a report directly stating it's South Carolina, but it's not hard to put the dots together and say maybe it's just a gigantic coincidence that South Carolina became a completely different football team with 2 games left in their season and looked great in those 2 games and put everything together. And the wristbands against Tennessee were the secret to stopping a Tennessee offense that was previously unstoppable. Maybe all that's a coincidence, or maybe, just maybe, Shane Beamer, who had to pay a fine, or Georgia did before, for accepting illegal information from Wake Forest, maybe he got tipped off to something going on.
And in thinking back to this game, guys, the one thing that comes up for me is South Carolina's offense was rolling, but defensively, they weren't really stopping Tennessee either early in this game. It was 42-31 whenever the officials messed up that pick play call, and it pushed Tennessee back into South Carolina territory, or back in their own territory. And that's really when things started to change. I mean, as far as the connections with the wristbands and things, I mean, it looks like more than just a coincidence based on how they finished the regular season. But, I mean, if you're going to get the signs and it's going to work to some massive degree, don't we need to see a higher rate of also stopping the Tennessee offense early on, or no? I think the idea is that Tennessee's offense didn't do all that much when, in fact, I mean, they had 31 points on the board when that call happened, and then Hooker got hurt.
Yeah, and now also let's keep in mind that he's not just taking offensive signals.
Right.
The defense had been a lot better, and they were otherworldly atrocious in this game.
Yes, they were.
And Spencer Rattler completely lit them up. So, look, if you were tipped off and you know exactly when a blitz-happy team is going to blitz and where they're blitzing from based on a signal, that's a pretty easy way to exploit a short passing game and go right where the blitz is coming from and throw it there every time. And South Carolina, again, maybe complete coincidence, with Spencer Rattler was able to do that and get in the perfect play call time and time and time again in this game. Look, we're not out here just making allegations willy-nilly. We're connecting the dots. Anyone online right now could do it.
There's a lot of people doing this.
And there's a lot of reports out there that back some of this stuff up. I will say this. If the law firm that handed over all this information from the computers is what they're basing the investigation on, we will know. Time will tell. But if there's any type of electronic communication between anyone at South Carolina and anyone that's scouted for Michigan, we're going to find out about it based on the level of intelligence that was acquired by this law firm. I also see this ending in a Connor Stalions tell-all interview on HBO Real Sports or somewhere else, because this guy ain't getting a job in college football again. I think that dream is over now. This is becoming a national scandal. So what do guys that don't have anything to lose do eventually? They talk. And Connor Stalions has a lot of talking to do at some point. Now, maybe he won't because he loves Michigan so much. And that he's not going to do it to hurt his university that he loves and cares so much about. Or maybe he gets paid some money and tells all and talks about the extent to which all of this went. It's a crazy story, Hutton. And the further you dive into the rabbit hole, the more offshoots and roots there are to this that extend across the country.
And as crazy as it all is, we could be looking at an NCAA that does absolutely nothing in time for it to matter on this season, on this coach, on this story. You know, it's a crazy sign-stealing scandal with a twist and turns every other hour, it feels like. But what's the NCAA going to do about it? You don't have a precedent set from the past, and you also have a blatant evidence where, I mean, We're even turning to what was the guy's name on the VolQuest post?
Artie Palmer alert?
Arnie Palmer alert.
Yeah, I mean, someone behind that account is more accurate than what I believe to be accurate in regards to the NCAA actually getting it right? Like, I have more faith in that post than I do the NCAA making this a swift decision and actually penalizing a team that would need to be enforced this year given the circumstances of what it all means. Because they would also, I mean, if you buy into the fact that they were doing it last year about the non-conference opponents and potential playoff teams, they've been doing it this year.
Yeah, they have been doing it this year. And so the law firm, if we go with the idea that it was because of the Matt Weiss investigation that someone got all this information out of the Michigan computers, that would have been taking place in January and February of 2023. So why wait until that long in the season? I don't know. But if they have that much information on it, it's a slam dunk for the NCAA or the Big Ten or anyone to act on it, if that's the case. And we'll find out if anyone else is involved in this.
When I say that,
and receiving illegal
info, it would also be
not.
going on this year, meaning like if you buy into that they were handing over the signals to other teams in order to have opponents drop, they would be currently prepared to do that, right? At least in theory. 4 games left in the season.
Well, I mean,
there's again
2 teams may have lost a shot at a college football playoff.
It changes every
this
other
is true.
hour. Trey
That's
Wallace
pretty big.
hops in next.
So there is a 26-year-old woman in Australia. Her name is Annie Knight. She is on OnlyFans. So that being said, this shouldn't be so surprising, but please wait for it. Annie is bragging about having slept with 300 people in 1 year.
What? 300.
That is basically one person a day, but she didn't even space them out to that degree. She admitted to sleeping with 5 people in one day. And FYI, I say people because Annie does not discriminate. She sleeps with both men and with women. And the best part is she refers to this promiscuous lifestyle as empowering. Yeah, I'd be empowered to go get checked for STDs, but not much else empowering about this behavior. But this is the mentality that is being developed among women. They are out to prove they can do anything a man can. If you could put me on camera for this, that would be great, because I feel very strongly about this. Women are always out to prove that they can do what a man can, though it's very hypocritical, because if you ask me, because I would bet that if a man did do this and had this type of behavior that he was engaging in, women would be the first people to immediately call him toxic. Now, I would also love to know the family dynamic of Annie, because strong chances are she didn't have a strong male role model growing up, as she would have learned the degeneracy is the ultimate form of self-respect. And again, she's 26. I have no clue if and when she intends to get married, but this is going to be a hard sell for a future husband, or even wife for that matter, since she considers herself bisexual, who has even an ounce of regard for themselves. And let's be honest, Annie, if you slept with 300 people in 1 year, how many in your lifetime?
Ouch. Don't do that math. All I can think about is Wilt Chamberlain, because Wilt said he had 10,000 women. I'm like,
how do you
do the math? If you do that, like, don't do the math. You don't want to do the math because it's disgusting. And you go, okay, I know you're trying to brag with your boys a little bit, but 10,000.
Do you think that was real, 10,000?
That was like, that's the legend,
yeah,
right, of Wilt. And it's like, that's almost statistically impossible.
I mean, that's just, okay, first of all,
you don't have time for a nap.
I was going to say, first of all, it's just beyond the idea of, like, that's just gross.
Yes,
and,
yes, besides all of that.
Like, that's one thing. But just, how do you, do you have to schedule appointments, or, like, do you literally just have to, like, go onto the street and be like, hey, you, come with me?
I've got a 6 o'clock, we got to get this in.
Because otherwise, I just don't even see how, like, because apparently, Annie says she goes on dating apps and finds a lot of her people.
Oh, boy.
So, like, I guess you just have to, like, learn how to build up a schedule in a way like that.
Well, my question for Annie is, why do you announce this? Like, why is this just for the OnlyFans? Is this does she think this is going to make her more profitable in that space by bragging about this? Because if it's true, you nailed it in your postscript, if you will. like you need to go talk to some people outside of the people that you're spending your time with.
Yeah, I think
Got a lot of issues
a
there.
lot of people are obviously looking for fame and in their 15 minutes, and I think for her this is her way of getting her 15 minutes, but it's just really disgusting, and I think she doesn't realize the huge disservice she's doing to herself for later on in life when she does realize.
Well, because those are real conversations you have with people that you actually end up spending time with.
Yeah.
Like, you don't necessarily want to go into the sordid past, but if you're bragging on OnlyFans,
all they have to do is a quick Google search, and then they find out, okay, actually you lied to me. It wasn't your 15 people like you said. It was actually 5,000.
315
in 1 year. Okay.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with EHOP Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Glad you're with us for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow here on the OutKick Network. A part of OutKick as well is Trey Wallace, senior reporter for college football at OutKick.com. Trey joins us now on the show. Trey, all of the back and forth and as Ann Arbor turns this week with Connor Stallions and sign stealing and connections with other programs and everyone trying to connect the dots on message boards to just trying to find Connor Stallions on a sideline. The craziness continues, it feels like, every other hour with new details. And you join us having talked to a source or sources about the alleged involvement with South Carolina in all of this at the end of last season.
What an interesting week. And by the way, a report came out, and I was just texting somebody. The NCAA is on the campus of Michigan. They arrived there a week after, I guess the investigation started. They got to Ann Arbor quicker than you would get a pizza on a Friday night. So I think that shows how important this investigation is to take care of. Look, it has been a It's been every.
Well, let me ask about that, Trey, because
Yeah,
timing is important here, right?
Yes.
This is a matter of utmost urgency, considering they're still playing for a Big Ten and national championship, and they've got information on every team they're going to play. We would think from here on out, especially that big one at the end of the year against Ohio State. So it doesn't surprise me that the NCAA is already interviewing people. But if they have the hard drives from the Michigan football department that's been reported by the Washington Post, I don't know that they even need to go on campus and talk to anyone. They've got it all right there in front of them.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing that's going on right now is you get inside these football offices, and you know what? Michigan's got to hand it over. I mean, if Michigan wanted to, they could not play ball in this situation. We've seen colleges do this before. During Tennessee's case, they walked them right through the whole darn investigation. With Michigan, I think it's gone to a point now where you have to turn over everything you have. You have to turn over your hard drive. You have to turn over electronics, cell phones, emails, all of that good stuff. And the fact that they do have them on campus this quick, again, shows how important this is. But also, in my opinion, the NCAA is not going to do anything about it this season. I think the NCAA is trying to gather this information to help the Big Ten out. And if Tony Petitri wants to make a decision on Michigan this season, this is where it's coming from. It's not like the Big Ten office is going to Ann Arbor and investigating all this. It's the NCAA. Okay, NCAA, what can you come up with in the next 2 to 3 weeks that would give us enough information to see if we have to make a decision this season regarding the Wolverines? I think that's why you're seeing the urgency from the NCAA, and along with the other teams that are in the conference and the signs and all that good stuff. So, look, it's been an every hour thing here. There's something new that comes out about this case every single hour, it feels like. And it's because this was such a sloppy scheme. This was the evidence that was left behind, the paper trail of buying tickets and who you're sending. You had You had a damn message board poster a year ago come out and say, hey, man, like this is going on. I got a friend's brother who's scouting for Michigan. All of this is laughable on one side, but then the other side, you're like, okay, man, this is actually kind of serious. We've gone so far in a week. Last week, it was like, okay, sign stealing, sending some folks. They got a lot of proof. So now we're sitting here on a Thursday and we're like, dang, okay, there's a lot to this. This is very serious. And Michigan could get, some pretty harsh penalties for this. Whether or not Harbaugh is the head coach in 2024 has no reckoning, in my opinion. Nothing to do with what's going on right now. I think the NCAA is they want to get to the bottom of this, and because you got a lot of schools complaining about it, and I don't blame them. So it's an interesting equation that Michigan has found themselves in right now as they deny, while on the other hand, you and the NCAA, pretty much the NCAA opens the door up to the Michigan facility and says, hey, you got to let us in. Michigan has let them in. I think that goes to show you how serious this can be. And Jonathan, you brought it up. You're hinting at the other schools that might, have gotten some information from Michigan in this. I'll let you complete your question before I kind of give you the answer in talking with some people today. But, it is an interesting facet to all of this.
Yeah, well, the implication is that South Carolina, it's more than a coincidence with how they finished the season based on the way they performed against opponents that Connor Stallions scouted and was able to decipher, one would think, signs from going into that game. And then they followed it up with another possible college football playoff opponent in Clemson.
Talking with multiple sources this morning and even an hour ago, this did not happen. According to sources that I am close with, this did not happen. South Carolina did not steal signals or buy signals from Michigan or Connor Stallions or anything along those lines.
Were they given signals?
They weren't given signals. They weren't passed off signals, anything like that. And these are just the folks that I've spoken with about this. And I feel very confident in saying that. I think Tennessee just got their ass kicked last year, and they couldn't cover anybody on defense, especially down the field with the secondary that was horrible. And that's why you saw all those points. Look, I get it. This whole situation has made people question college football and how things are done. I understand that completely. That's not lost on me one bit. But to think that, Michigan is out here, selling playbooks, selling signals to other schools, and that's going to cause chaos. I don't believe that. But in the case of, you asked me specifically about South Carolina, I'm telling you that my sources are saying that's absolutely not true. Tennessee fans can calm down now and just realize their defense got smoked last year.
Let me put it this way. I don't know why it's so crazy to believe, given that Shane Beamer was involved in the same type of thing. Right. Georgia had to pay a fine because when he was at Virginia Tech, he was buying or taking information from Wake Forest while he was a coach there at Virginia Tech. And maybe it is a complete coincidence, but this is where this story becomes bigger, Trey. South Carolina was bad before that Tennessee game, throughout the bulk of that year. They were great against Tennessee. They were great against Clemson. They were bad against Notre Dame in the bowl game. They've been bad all season since then. Maybe, just maybe, it is a giant coincidence. But I think the biggest part of this story is not whether or not they did it, but if they did, how damn well it worked. And if that is the case, it's all going to be on those computers this law firm has. Every bit of digital evidence will be right there on one of those devices or on those computers, right? If there's any type of trail on it. That, to me, is the biggest kicker in this story, is just like when the NBA got popped because a referee was on the take. From that point on, what does everybody say? The NBA is fixed. Oh, that was a bad call on this guy in the playoffs. The NBA must want them to do this. The game is fixed. If it worked to this extent and they did it and two teams didn't play in a college football playoff, and Clemson, by the way, could probably point to that and say that's the demise of their dynasty. was that loss to South Carolina. That triggered everything into happening. This story gets that much bigger.
It gets that much bigger.
I don't think it could work to that extent. That's why I'm saying this. Like, that's the crazy part, is if it actually worked that well for South Carolina in those two games, right?
Well,
that would be hard to believe for me to believe on this.
But hasn't so I'll throw it back at you a little bit in a sense of this whole story about Michigan stealing signs has made you question everything. It's made you question, a team beating another team by 20. I don't care who it is if they're a Power 5.
But again, when we're talking point spreads, all right, beating a team by 34 and not 28, if it's a 6-point swing because you have their signs, is a big deal for the integrity of the game. It's not just, I'm not saying Michigan would have lost one of these games. They've been blowing people out by if they weren't stealing their signs. But I'm telling you, I think when Connor Stallion speaks, which is going to happen eventually, that is going to be a widely viewed interview, because I want to know how well this works. Because, and Hunt, I think you were on this same path. The first assumption was, everybody's trying to get some advantage or leg up, but it's not that big of a deal, right? Well, maybe, this and that, and you can make a couple plays because you know something. But if South Carolina is the example, which you're saying, your sources say it's not, but if they were the example, I'm just blown away by how well it worked over the course of 2 games. And seemingly nothing else has worked for South Carolina before or since those 2 games, right?
I'm not going to sit here and deny it. I'm not going to sit here and deny that, South Carolina, I mean, Chad,
it's crazy.
You put me in that spot, but I can't disagree with you. But also, do Tennessee fans know the whole backstory of what happened that week leading up to South Carolina, where, Jeremy Banks goes just, full off the rails, doesn't show up to practice, gets in a fight in a locker room with players. The defense is in shambles. The whole team is kind of divided pretty much down the middle. So you walked into South Carolina with a team that was just pissed off at each other. I mean, there's a bunch of different reasons why Tennessee got their ass kicked, but I can't, I guess I can't sit here and say with, 100% certainty, in my opinion, like did something sketchy not happen, but I don't believe it after talking with people that South Carolina did it. Now, if the NCAA, as they are right now, sitting up in Michigan facilities, comes across something or a text message or an email or a file that is sent to other teams, okay, well, that story changes completely and everything changes. But I think the paranoia, I'm not saying you're paranoid, I'm saying the paranoia of all of college football now. I mean, how Lincoln Riley was asked about why he held up a screen, in front of his play caller this past week against Utah. Well, the reporter's asking about because of what's going on in Michigan. Lincoln Riley's response was, well, we've gotten beat by Utah 2 times in a row. They know our signals. We play them all the time. So we're just trying to prevent that from happening again. But I'm getting at, the whole Michigan thing has made college football and other teams paranoid about whether or not their signals have been stolen. And it doesn't help that it all happened and transpired last year. And then, you know what, I'll say it too. And then you get a vague little paragraph last night in a story that says, well, they may have done this, or we're hearing they may have passed along signal. There's no reporting in that. That's just that I'm sorry. I'm not trying to take shots, but that's not reporting. If you've heard of an alleged team that's getting signals from others or Michigan, name them. Don't put it in there, it's just, well, they may have done this. That's laziness. And I'm sorry, but now it's led to everybody in the Tennessee fan base thinking that South Carolina stole signals, or even in the Clemson fan base, when all of a sudden they're going off this one small little bitty paragraph in a story that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever and was just thrown in there for the hell of it.
Well, right, but you referenced the message board post earlier. I mean, that's what really got this all started. It wasn't the one paragraph last night.
It's the message board post. It's the crazy 2 great performances by South Carolina. It's the fact that their head coach has already done something like this and been proven guilty of it, and Georgia had to pay a fine for it. It's the wristbands that they didn't have all season. I mean, it's not just one little bit of evidence here. Look, I think it's all going to come out in the wash. I really do. If they have the computers that's already been turned over, according to this Washington Post report, from the law firm to the NCAA, they're going to have everything that went on in this one way or the other.
And Trey, we've got exactly 30 seconds, but you get the last word.
Okay, I know, and I'm not, look, Chad, I'm not saying I disagree with anything, and okay, a lot of what you're saying I'm not disagreeing with. I'm saying, yes, it will all come out. I'm saying that the NCAA is probably currently looking through computers right now and hard drives and emails and whatnot. And I'm saying that evidence comes out, then that's a conversation that we'll have. The message board thing, Jonathan, real quick for clarity, that was talking about Vanderbilt last year. And that was talking about the Kentucky game where somebody came out. That had nothing to do with South Carolina. So I think that's 2 different types of scenarios here we're talking about. So
they didn't attend the Vanderbilt game because South Carolina beat Tennessee.
Yeah, right. I agree. But the poster was talking about them attending one game, so that's where that part came from. So I'm not trying to, deny anything or anything. I'm just telling you what I've heard, and that's where we're at. I mean, we could go on for a dang hour about this if we really wanted to, and I could break down every single point.
Yeah,
but
we'll be going on for a while with the NCAA.
Yeah, look, it's made an already highly paranoid sport even more paranoid.
Trey,
that's
thank
for sure.
you, man.
Thanks, Trey.
Great job today with adding to what has been a crazy story, and look forward to your work at OutKick.
Hey, guys, have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too, man.
Appreciate you, man.
Thanks, guys.
There's Trey Wallace there. And, oh, by the way, deny for Michigan, and then appeal. Nothing's going to happen as fast as the NCAA may want it to. Coming up, much more on this.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump, now at least have to see like senile, not all there. Probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself. I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California. And I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be this stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for?
Absolutely not.
What about RFK Jr.?
No.
Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm going to go Ron DeSantis.
Okay. Why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro.
There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm gonna say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
Because Game of Thrones is all about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Hell yeah, baby. I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well.
Yeah.
And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Thanks to Trey Wallace for joining us.
Quick break.
Yeah. You can,
Back in a hurry.
always, Chad.
Yeah.
Always.
I
You
just
can
looked up. I'm like, man, I have my headphones on. Not ready to go.
check out Trey's work at OutKick.com.
Don't worry, everyone. I'm settled in now. I'm fine.
Good to
I'm
go.
good. It's going to be okay. We're going to soldier on.
Armando Salguero will be with us. He'll soldier on with us. That'll be coming up in about 40 minutes from right now. Plus, John Brice of footballscoop.com will add his perspective to the Michigan sign stealing and other programs that could be involved. He doesn't specifically name, but he does say that there could be others. We'll have John weigh in.
Could be some coordination. I forget exactly how that's worded, but coordination with the opposition of possible playoff opposition.
Yes. Yes.
Involved here.
Plus Ryan Leaf in hour number 3 coming up a bit later. Chad, each and every week we have hard decisions to make. Pick your poison.
All right, gentlemen, to get things rolling on this one has to go. And whenever I say one, I am giving you the option, I had the S on there, of the World Series, the Stanley Cup Finals, and the NBA Finals. Now, you might be thinking, what is the question revolving around this? Well, you can only, or you have to get rid of one of these, and you can never watch that playoff championship series ever again. Which one are you eliminating?
This one's easy for me, Hutton. It's the Stanley Cup Finals. While I respect and appreciate the sport of hockey and the toughness involved and how difficult it is to win Lord Stanley's Cup, I'm not tuned into every second of every Stanley Cup final game. So if I got to pick one, I'm watching more of the World Series, definitely more of the NBA Finals. So I am eliminating the Stanley Cup Final, even though I think it's a great event.
I tried to take my fandom out of this, but it also will creep back in my answer. My answer is the World Series, and here's why. The NBA and the NHL give me something to do in June. And I prefer, if there's a football game on, I'm probably watching that and then flipping over to the World Series to check the score and going back to the game. That's just how I'm wired. Now, the other part of this is the Stanley Cup Final. I'm actually in a market with a team that could be in said final, and I know what it was like the last time the Nashville Predators were in the Stanley Cup Final.
And it was
awesome. This city was unbelievable.
It was awesome.
So
can confirm.
I don't have the option of Major League Baseball in Nashville yet. So, and as far as the NBA, again, it gives me something to watch in sports, possibly bet on, in a month where there's not college or NFL. That's the only reason, because 15-year-old me would hate me right now for saying the World Series has got to go.
That surprises me.
I tend to agree with you, Hut. If, let's say, I know the World Series starts tomorrow, but if it's on tonight, I'm definitely choosing Thursday Night Football over Game 1. Like, not even debating that.
Well, if it was a this year thing, with all due respect to Arizona and the Texas Rangers, I would eliminate this World Series.
It could be Yankees,
Like,
Dodgers for me.
Can we pick a singular World Series or finals to eliminate? Because I'd like to eliminate this one.
Whenever you said, I'm sorry, with all due respect to Lord Stanley Cup, I'm not tuned in to every single game. I'm thinking, will you with this World Series?
No. I am voting the Diamondbacks versus the Rangers off the island of World Series in history.
First pitch tomorrow night.
Guys, next up.
Won't be watching.
Future of the program. I'm going to give you 2 current NFL quarterbacks.
Okay.
And you have to tell me which one you would build your franchise around. And for this conversation, we will assume both of these QBs are fully healthy. And those quarterback options, Kyler Murray or Deshaun Watson?
This is a great one.
Terrific. This is the very definition of pick your poison because both of these are awful choices here. I'll let you start.
Do I inherit just the quarterback, not is it the contract currently and everything else?
I'm going to say
but
no,
except for their
but
health.
I think you just go with the quarterback.
How do we
we can't factor in contract or just the quarterback.
I mean,
just the quarterback and the future of that quarterback.
Their contract's not involved, but I will allow for Kyler Murray's stipulation if he has to watch so much game film be permitted into this conversation.
Okay,
that's good. That's an important note in the contract.
That's my issue with him. If we're just talking pure quarterback, it's Watson. I mean, there's a reason why he's got the fully guaranteed deal. It's because of the potential that he's got. Now, if you buy into the fact that he's faking injuries and stuff, I would say I don't know why he came back and played last week, if you believe that. Kyler Murray took the Cardinals to a 7-0 start, but without DeAndre Hopkins on the field, the guy has sucked. I mean, it's when Hopkins is on the field and they're together, they were good. And when they're not, they weren't all that great. And I also think that Murray's got, the talk was when he was drafted that he wanted to play baseball. He's not doing that. But instead of baseball, he's playing, Fortnite or whatever else it is.
Call of Duty.
Call of Duty.
I think is his poison that he picks.
Yeah. I mean, at least within a structure of an offense, I would take Deshaun Watson over Kyler Murray.
Okay.
Deshaun Watson has done his damnedest to make this thing an actual close decision since he started playing for the Browns at the end of last year.
That's
true.
He
really has, because quite honestly, when he was just serving that suspension and he wasn't playing with the Texans, given his body of work as a Houston Texan, this thing is not even close. I am taking Deshaun Watson all the time, every time. But he's done a lot to chip away at that facade since he actually started playing. And now there's this, is he hurt or is he injured? Are he and Kevin Stefanski on the same page? Who's telling the truth? Who's not? How do we look into that? I still will take Deshaun Watson, even though he's chipped away at that facade quite a bit. But I think Watson has been the better quarterback, can be the better quarterback again if he pulls it together. And much like I have reservations about Caleb Williams with the fingernail painting and the disrespecting the opponents and some other things, I just have never gotten a great vibe from Kyler Murray. Outside of him being an outstanding athlete at the quarterback spot, the contract clause to not play Call of Duty as much, some of the things he's done and said over the course of his career, I get it. Deshaun Watson has some baggage too.
Sure.
Totally understand that. I'm still taking Watson over Murray, and it kind of surprises me that I'm saying it.
Me too.
But I'm taking Watson.
I wouldn't even know where to begin on this one. I do feel this is I would probably pick Kyler Murray, and the only reason behind that is because I hate the strong word. I don't despise him as much as I do Deshaun Watson.
Now, if I'm starting a baseball team, I'm taking Kyler Murray.
Yeah.
Because remember, he was about to go play for the Oakland
I'm
A's
solely viewing my decision on the field. Which quarterback do I buy is going to help me win more than the other?
The other way I could justify this is I feel like if I were to draft my favorite quarterback on my fantasy team, Kyler Murray would at least keep me in those games, whereas Deshaun Watson's pretty much a liability even in fantasy at this point. He ended with negative points, which I'm trying to think of the last time a quarterback did that. So that's pretty impressive for Deshaun. And then, speaking of infamous people, but our last pick your poison for today. Infamous or forgotten? Would you rather be infamous in history books or no one remember you at all?
I think
infamous meaning I don't know.
Infamous meaning you're remembered for something not great.
Yeah, but I don't know the details of what that is.
That is correct.
Because I think it's you could be infamous for being Connor Stallions, or you could be infamous for being O.J. Simpson.
Well, yes, or right, or Judas.
And also, is like the one thing I'm known for, the bad thing, like a Connor Stallions, who we never would have known his name had this not popped up, or is it like a Kevin Spacey scenario, who was a terrific actor for years and years, and I celebrate his catalog, but then had some issues as of late that we're also going to remember him for.
You aren't going to have done anything outside of your life, like anything super terrible.
It's all infamy, you're saying.
Yeah. You're just viewed as a bad person.
No, I would rather just be forgotten.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty easy answer. I would much rather be forgotten than be just infamous. Now, if I was both famous and infamous, like if I had accomplished a lot and reached a level of fame, and because of my level of fame, when I got in trouble for something, that is a footnote on everything that, on the bio, when I die, it's going to point out this thing or whatever it was. Maybe there's a decision to be made. But if I'm only famous for doing something terrible, then I'd much rather die a forgotten man.
Okay.
Yes.
I was trying to
leave John Wayne Gacy for someone else.
Yeah.
Taking this from the standpoint of
Jeffrey Dahmer was a hell of an accountant.
What you're doing right now is not terrible, but 200 years from now, everyone's going to cancel you for something kind of like we're currently doing in today's society.
We should play a game, Davey. I just thought of this as you said that. Canceled or not? You should bring us people, and we try to decide whether or not they've been canceled for something. Different famous people.
Because honestly, if they canceled themselves.
There are a bunch that were canceled and then came back.
Yes.
Right? Like Aziz Ansari comes to mind. James Franco. I honestly don't know if they're still canceled or they're back. Both those guys at one point were canceled for something.
But Franco was just directing, right? Recently? I mean, before.
I love James Franco. Hud and I, one of our favorite shows, a short-lived show, The Deuce on HBO, where Franco played twin characters.
Should have been
a longer run than the 3 seasons it got.
Yep.
But I did like how they jumped in time, like 5 years each season of the show.
So, Davey, what would you choose?
Just go infamous.
All right. You want to be remembered?
I don't know what it's for.
I know that's the thing is when I hear infamous, I just think,
I'm dead. What do I care?
Yeah, but I mean, it's more about like. The infamous meaning like the family name and all that. I wouldn't want to.
The stain on the family.
Yeah.
Depending on what you're infamous for. Like if it's tax fraud and it's a huge scheme, like Bernie Madoff. Do you want to be known as Bernie Madoff? Is that like he didn't kill anybody? Well, I guess he kind of did financially.
I am the last person in my family that's able to carry on the family name.
Oh, you're the last.
Yeah,
the last boy.
So like if I don't have any male heirs,
kids hate their last name though. Watching the documentary on all that.
I'm sure.
So I mean, again, that's what you leave behind. I wouldn't want that.
What I hear is that Davey is a narcissist and doesn't care about anyone else in his family. It's all about him. As long as he gets the glory, even if it's for being infamous.
By the way, you're not in shorts today. You're not in open-toed shoes.
How's the toe?
It's painful.
Didn't the doctor say
to
wear open-toed shoes
for 24 hours? Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad you're all good.
Did you guys ever watch?
Cast on it, but I was able to get into the mesh tennis shoes.
I want to say you watched this. It was like maybe 6-7 years ago on HBO. They had that limited series, The Night of.
Oh yes, I've seen that.
And it was the rapper he's a good actor, but he's like a rapper from England. That was the starring guy that woke up with a woman after meeting her and she was dead, and he didn't know what happened, if he killed her or not. They were partying together.
Yes.
And then John Turturro, great actor, played his attorney, and remember he had a court order or doctor's order to wear open-toed shoes. Remember he had boils on his feet, and he had to walk into the courtroom with flip-flops on?
Yeah, with grocery feet.
This is Davey's future. Davey's going to be John Turturro from The Night Of. That was great. By the way, if you want to go back and just watch a limited series start to finish, that thing was awesome.
I haven't seen it, so I'll check it out.
It takes it through the entire
it looks like
criminal justice system.
Like
you go to prison with them, you go to the appeals process. It's a big mystery at the heart of it with the murder. Really good.
You can watch it on Max.
Speaking of the appeals process, for the discussion of the NCAA being on campus and trying to get everything done with Michigan, right? Or they're combing through stuff. If they hand down a penalty in a swift fashion. The appeals process with this. I mean, we've got a month left of the regular season, and then we roll forward towards the college football playoff. There's no justice in whatever they're going to hand down for this team.
Well, and also the integrity that's being questioned of the sport now, like the foundations of it can start to get questioned. I hate when we get into this whole thing where now we're watching a college football game and the jokes are going to be, oh, I wonder if this team had their signals the way they're looking tonight. It's like they're in the huddle with them. And when you get one big story like that, it leads to all these other questions that I frankly don't like around the sports that I'm watching. I like to think everything's on the up and up.
Yeah.
That there's a winner and a loser. They went about it fairly. They played the game, and this is what happened, and here's what we're going to talk about. I hate the cloud of did this happen or did this not happen, like we're talking about with South Carolina a year ago. Now with Michigan, with every game they've played in the last couple of years or all this season. I hate that stuff, but that's exactly what we get now with this story.
The Michigan investigation continues by the minute with more details. The Michigan State investigation with Mel Tucker, it's over. Details next on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the #1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement. And today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Just like that, the second hour is here. Hot Mike with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network. Glad you're with us. If you're watching live on YouTube, we say thank you. You can join Chad in the chat right now as we broadcast live from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. If you're listening to this great radio partner, we say thank you. Chad, just getting started. We've got Armando Salguero, who joins us in 20 minutes with the latest on NFL Week 8. Here we are already, Week 8, kicking off tonight with Tampa Bay at Buffalo for Thursday Night Football. Plenty of other storylines across the league. A bit later this hour, John Brice of FootballScoop.com. He'll join us to go a layer or two deeper on the Michigan John Harbaugh, Connor Stallions, sign stealing investigation and allegations that it goes further than just with Michigan and scouting current regular season opponents and then trying to possibly assist, at least that's what's being implied, assist with teams that were facing or would be facing possible college football playoff opponents.
Oh, you know what's crazy? Next week will be November 1st.
Yes.
And I was thinking about this morning. We got a month left of the college football season. NFL is going to go a while longer, but I mean, we essentially have until championship weekend, about a month.
Then it's the most wonderful time of the year with the bowl season.
Yes. What is it they call it? The feast week?
Isn't
that it? Right? Then doesn't ESPN have? That's like the. Maybe that's Thanksgiving week where they have like all the Maui Invitational and all that going on.
Oh, for basketball.
No, feast week I think maybe. I don't know. They've got something that's the week between Christmas and New Year's. That's their big bowl. You know, every day they have 3 or 4 games on, back to back to back.
But I thought if they promote the week, it's like actually like 7 weeks. You know,
yeah,
it continues.
Well, the first bowl game is going to happen
every week. Is the new
Saturday
best week.
After championship weekend. So it always happens like December 11th. Then they'll have another one the next weekend. Then they'll really start to layer them out.
Next year, when they expand to 12 teams, does that start the following weekend after championship weekend? I believe it does, because the first round would be then.
Yeah, it's mid-December,
yeah,
so it'd be right after that.
On campus.
Yep.
That's awesome.
That's going to be really cool. And you're going to have some cold weather games with some of these host sites for teams on campus. It's going to have an NFL playoff feel to it. I love the 12-team expanded playoff. But I don't love the fact that here we are. It's great. We're in the thick of football season. Nothing's wrong with that. But November 1st next week, and we got a month left. I mean, the college football regular season, which that'll end for a lot of teams, it'll be it. Will be Thanksgiving weekend. We're getting close.
Yes, we are. And by the way, Tuesday on Halloween, we'll get the first college football playoff selection committee rankings. And that will be the final time for the 4. There are pros and cons to the 4 versus 12 for me that I'm realizing. Next year, we won't be having this great debate about who are the 4 teams right now that you really feel like are going to be there. Who are the top 4 and what's the ranking in order? Next year, it'll be discussing the 2 lost teams that are fighting and clawing to make their bid to get into the 12-team playoff. Now, I like the fact that a team has 2 losses and we just don't ignore them.
Absolutely.
Love that. And I love the process of them going about on campus and having that true tournament that I think eventually expands further. But, Chad, it will lose a little bit of the true debate throughout the season for teams that, those top 12 teams that are solely focused on trying to make the top 4 at the end. It won't be as hard. You won't go in as hard on the idea that you in mid-October you've got to debate the fact that so-and-so is going to make a run and they're still in the mix for the college football playoff. We thought Alabama was dead earlier this year, and we wouldn't have been saying that if it was a 12-team playoff, and we won't be saying that next year.
And see, I don't see any of that as a bad thing. I think that's
it's not
all
bad,
good
but
because I just get tired with the Clemson lost in week 1. How can they work their way back in the college football playoff discussion? Now we just get to talk about the games week to week more.
And now it's more about who gets the bye.
Similar to the NFL a little bit, right?
The top 4 ranked
it's not
champions.
So dire.
Right.
That these powerhouse programs, they lose a game like Alabama this year. It's like, oh, Alabama's dead. And now 4 weeks later, what do we say? Oh, Alabama's back in it. They're going to win the West. They got a chance at the college football playoff. Now, here's what's going to be difficult to wrap our heads around a year from now. Tennessee, Kentucky this weekend will be to stay alive for a college football playoff berth for one of those teams. with 2 losses each.
Mm-hmm.
That's the weird part of it. That's fun, though.
Yep.
Right? We're not going to go into the game thinking, all right, these teams have a great shot to be in the top 12, but Tennessee's 21st in the country.
It's really the 11.
They have 2 losses, right? If they beat Kentucky, then Missouri would become an elimination game. Now Missouri's right there with 1 loss in the mix for a playoff spot.
That's a good team to mention. We will be talking more next year about the whoever is next year's version of Missouri and Ole Miss.
Yeah.
I mean, instead
Ole
of
Miss
talking,
is a great example.
Yeah,
of it.
both of them in the East and the West, and that goes away too. So I mean,
and I just think all that's good.
The attention transfers to the next tier instead of the top 4 or 5 that we have discussed and talked about, at the bar or on the show every single day of the college football season for the last decade plus.
Yeah, I think the college football, and I love the sport, but the only issue they have right now, especially with the 14 playoff, is it becomes these 2 completely opposite groups of teams that are discussed throughout the year. And that is the 9 or 10 that are in the top 4 range throughout the year that could win a conference championship. They'll be discussed all year until they lose 2 games. Then they stop talking about them. Mixed with the Arkansas, Michigan States, where you're talking about, is this guy going to get fired? Texas A&M, are they going to keep their job? Who's next there? And everybody in the middle that, by the way, features a ton of really good teams, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be 3, 4,
especially this year,
maybe 5 lost teams. They're still playing impactful games for them, but it's not ever impactful nationally, and they get lost in the shuffle. But now all of a sudden, a Missouri, an Ole Miss you brought up, Tennessee, Kentucky with only 2 losses would still be in a 12-team fight right now in late October. You look around college football, there's plenty of other. Penn State, who has the 1 loss. You're not writing them off as, well, here they go again. They're behind Michigan and Ohio State. You're thinking, even if they lose 1 more, are they still in the top 12?
Well, I mean,
so that's
this year's example.
That's what makes it fun.
If they don't lose to Stanford, Colorado's 5-2.
Yeah, they're in the mix.
Yeah, which is crazy to think about.
Nicole Auerbach.
But they do lose to Stanford.
Nicole Auerbach of The Athletic just posted, NCAA's investigators have interviewed members of the Michigan football staff today. A source confirmed. So Trey Wallace had mentioned that, but there's confirmation that they are interviewed. They're not just on campus. Today they are interviewing staff members.
Harbaugh mentioned in his statement, correct me if I'm wrong, about cooperating.
He said we're going to fully
cooperate, which is, certainly the opposite of saying that he didn't recall on certain recruiting visits and pointing to a hamburger.
Well, I think that if he's fully cooperating, he's not going to go down the same path of being intentionally vague or not giving clear answers. I think, Hutton, the clear answer is going to be either not to my knowledge or I've never heard anything about it.
Well,
but here's the thing with the way the rules work now, that doesn't matter. The NCAA has rewritten enforcement where he has to know. If it's someone on his staff, even if he's claiming ignorance, that's not going to matter for Jim Harbaugh or Michigan's football program. So even if the directive was, hey, if you're doing all this, I don't want to know about it type thing, that's the old NCAA. That's not going to fly, I think, with the current setup. Now, maybe, I don't know, maybe it helps with this contract, however it's worded with Michigan, if they end up facing something bad, that he doesn't get fired with cause if he claims ignorance and doesn't know about it. I don't know.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, is, I mean, the full cooperation, as he says in his statement, I also look to that as he's pretty confident they're not going to connect it to him.
Yeah.
To the big extent. What is it, a failure to when you have the coach that doesn't know anything, but it happened under his watch, the violation there that ends up being a
failure
possible,
to monitor.
Is that what it is?
Failure to monitor from the head coach. But also, the more I look into this story, the more I think they shouldn't have said anything. Even we're going to cooperate fully, nothing.
Well,
if you're Michigan, could you just turn away the NCAA until after the season? And just say, hey, we're in the middle of a season here. We'll look into it internally, but we're not going to let NCAA investigators on campus right now. We're not going to stop our work to do these interviews, because think of that level of distraction mixed with, if all of this is true, the level of lying you'd have to do, or just no comments to the NCAA investigators where you know what's coming eventually, depending on what evidence they already have. I mean, I know Clay said it yesterday. I honestly kind of think their best tact would just have been, screw off right now. We're going to play out this season. Then you can come back later and say we have to vacate it or whatever. But we're trying to win a national title this year. So we're going to continue going about our business.
There's also an allotted time for an appeals process, too.
Yeah.
Where they don't have to implement any said discipline or suspension or penalty until the Board of Infractions at the appeals level would hear their case. I don't think you can expedite that, Chad. So as fast as things may be going, it's difficult to say that it's going to affect anything on the field this season for the Wolverines.
A friend of mine listening right now on one of our radio affiliates says it's Capital One Bowl Week is what I was looking
there you
for.
go.
Feast Week, as Davey alerted us to, is the men's and women's college basketball starting 11/24 on ESPN.
The most wonderful time of the year, Chad.
Hey, great job by ESPN. Just burning that into my brain, by the way, the Feast Week thing during the holiday season.
Tough to start thinking about hoops right now.
Real tough.
Tough.
Real tough to look at. I'm seeing all these, our guy John Fanta, who we've had on the show a bunch. He's got like a preseason Big E, the top Big East teams and top Big East players.
I love Fanta.
Here's my top 20. And he's like, you're not going to like it. And I'm thinking, I don't even know I don't know who's on these teams. I just saw that Armando Bacot is back for North Carolina. And I'm like, is he a doctor? I feel like the guy's been there. Did he play with Vince Carter at North Carolina? How long is we've been talking about Armando Bacot turning pro for 5 years now, and he's back.
He's back.
Who knew? That is my college basketball. Every day, Hutton, I'll bring a college basketball nugget of the day that I found on social media.
Yes.
That's today's. Armando Bacot back for North Carolina. Now you know.
Chad, a Michigan State University hearing officer has determined that former football coach Mel Tucker sexually harassed Brenda Tracy. And the hearing officer ruled that Tucker was in violation of several terms of his contract. And the person who sent this to the Associated Press said Tucker, who was fired nearly a month ago, has 10 days to file an appeal. He did not go to the hearing. And part of this includes the fact that he didn't attend the hearing or present anything to show that what the phone sex was consensual. And it goes on to mention the fact that also not in his favor is the fact that he didn't contact Tracy for 3 months following said phone call, as well as other things that was a very wide open-ended term and language throughout his contract that Michigan State's pointing back to for cause in removing Tucker as head coach. And they don't mention the text exchanges from Tucker's attorney and what is alleged to be sent from Tracy and all this to not just Tucker, but friends of hers, acquaintances.
Well, and Michigan State's sort of in a tough spot because I think they overreacted. I think it was a knee-jerk reaction, and I believe they found a way to try to get rid of a coach for free.
That's it.
That they overpromised too much money to, and they said, this is a slam dunk, we can do it. And then when you start to peel back the onion, you realize not so much a slam dunk based on what this woman was saying and doing with friends and based on the nature of their what appears to be consensual relationship, at least at some point in time, between Tucker and Brenda Tracy. So the university makes this rash decision, and then if there was ever going to be a defense for Mel Tucker, once they've made that rash decision, well, he's not going to cooperate with them. So he could present them information that would get his job back, but now he no longer wants the job. He wants his buyout because they've done this to him. So what are his attorneys going to do? They're going to hide everything, and they're going to sue the university to get that money back. So all the information they've gathered and will gather will be in that lawsuit. So now the university is sitting there with one side of the story from Brenda Tracy, and so obviously they're going to reach the conclusion, well, this guy didn't defend himself. We've got no other information, so we have nothing to do here but take her at her word and say that it was sexual harassment.
Yeah, and they say the reasoning for Tucker canceling Tracy's speaking engagement at Michigan State did not hold water, and went on to say that after Tucker decided not to have Tracy appear on campus again, she had told Tucker that she was not interested in a sexual relationship, and the investigator found that this was an unreasonable reason for her to provide services as a vendor, quote unquote. And Tucker's already said through his attorney they plan to sue for the remainder of his contract, the $80 million.
Yeah.
So this isn't going away, even though
I don't think he's getting all of it, Hutton, but I think he's getting a big chunk.
He's getting
of
something.
It. Yeah, they're going to get something. They're not getting away with nothing, but I also don't think he's going to get all of it for some of these reasons we've mentioned.
Well, the court of public opinion, ruled one way, and then you see the evidence that his side is presenting with text messages that apparently Brenda Tracy sent, and you're back in like, oh, maybe this is just a money grab, because she hints at that, talking about his contract in some of the conversations she was having.
It never fully added up.
No.
With the first story, and then we get more information that doesn't paint Tracy in the best light and all this either. And then it just always goes back to me too. The moment I read this headline, I thought, there it is. There's the out. There's a struggling coach that's making $95 million in a contract, and this is Michigan State's way to get out of that.
And there's language in there that says it's putting the university in a bad light.
Yep.
Right?
Very vague. On purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming up, Armando Salguero, the latest across the NFL, quarterback possibilities for playing this weekend, and trade deadline a week away. Next.
Dabo Swinney ripping his own fans. Dabo Swinney at Clemson is, I don't know, they tell me that he's the guy that doesn't like the transfer portal because he's made some comments that weren't exactly supportive of it. Dabo Swinney has done a job at Clemson that very few thought could be done. Clemson is a town about this big. Well, I better do this, not that, because that's like a white power sign idiots say. But it's about that big. The state is South Carolina. The state is not Clemson. But Dabo Swinney put Clemson in rarefied air. If you, a couple years ago, were going to name me the 3 best college football teams before Georgia's run here, you'd say Alabama, Ohio State, and Clemson. That's kind of who it always came down to. It felt like. So Dabo Swinney is now the victim of something that is good in one way, but it's bad in another. Incredible expectations of your fan base, meaning 10-2 ain't good enough. It just ain't. You can say whatever you want, but it just ain't. We got to be better. What? We're not in the college football playoff? What? We're not winning a national champion? What? We're 4-2? That's only winning 67% of our games? Here's what Dabo had to say. If you don't go undefeated, people say you're losers, that you're terrible. Let me tell you something. This is why football coaches for years and years and years and years fought the college football playoff. We're at a point in time, and I hate that, where people, if you don't go undefeated, you're losers. You're terrible. It's just a terrible mindset. Honestly, maybe we need to lose a few games and lighten up the bandwagon. Sometimes the bandwagon get a little full. That's the one good thing about going through a little bit of so-called adversity, is that you really find out who's with you and who's not. That's all crap. Let me explain to you Dabo Swinney's day, can I? Dabo Swinney probably wakes up around 5:30. Dabo Swinney smokes shit, shower, shave, shampoo, goes to the office. Probably has a meeting at 7. Dabo Swinney then is probably in different meetings with players or recruits, or maybe the administration, going and maybe watching film, whatever. Then he has practice. Then after practice, he's doing the same thing. Then in the evening, he's making phone calls. Probably goes home around 10. At no point in time in his day, his week, his month, his year, is he finding out who's with us and who's not with us. It's not like there's a list. Now, maybe you find out what media member wants to rip you, but on a daily basis, a monthly basis, you're not finding out any of this crap. It's very simple. Coaches, if you want to know who's with you, understand that when you lose, nobody's really with you. If you want to know who's really with you, win. And then everybody's really with you. It's literally that simple. As my father used to say to me, Dan, we're with you, win or tie, and we ain't so sure about the tie. So shut up with that stuff, win some football games, and don't sweat it. Seriously, do yourself a favor. Work hard, grab yourself a glass of wine, go sit in your chair, and read a book instead of being on social media or worrying about who is with you and who is not with you.
Sixth and Peabody, our location. Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine, located right here from our OutKick studios. Glad you're with us for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Across the OutKick network, check out the 5 spots. I mean, guest after guest, marquee NFL coaches.
Incredible
5 spot with Donovan McNabb
heater
and
they're on with a guest.
Armando Salguero,
Man.
who joins us right now. Armando, always great to have you on. Hope you're having a great week.
I'm having a great week. It just got better.
Oh, same here.
So nice of you,
Same
Armando.
here.
Thank you.
Check out Armando's
Look forward
great
to these
work
visits every week.
at OutKick.com. We've been discussing a lot about Michigan and the sign stealing and everything. It's not quite Spygate, is it?
Well,
How do you view Spygate today? I guess.
Well, I mean, that was a Super Bowl.
Sure.
That's where.
And this could be a championship.
That's a pretty big stage, right? And so that's where that came to fruition, and you know the Patriots taping the St. Louis Rams, and then you know, sort of evidence coming out of assistants talking to Belichick about what to expect in the coming game and whether we knew anything or not. But ultimately, I'll have you recall that the Boston Herald had to walk back that story. So, I don't know.
Here's how I'd like to ask it to you, Armando, on this Harbaugh story. Does this hurt him at all with his desire to get back in the NFL with an NFL owner, this whole story? It doesn't, does it?
Nope. Look, NFL owners care about maybe 3 things. Thing number 1 they care about, did you hit a woman? Thing number 2 that they care about, how much do you want? Thing number 3 they care about is, how are you going to help me make money and win, right? Does this apply to any of those 3?
No.
Nope.
Okay.
It does not.
All right. So that's if it's not legally, it doesn't bring legal ramifications, if it doesn't affect the chance to win in the future, and I'm sure it's not going to affect the money that Jim Harbaugh would ask of an NFL team. I don't know that it has huge NFL consequences. Now, if something more comes out, if more information comes out, and there's more skullduggery, and it gets all sorts of in the weeds of other people being involved, and it could have a fringe effect, but mostly no.
Armando Salguero with us. Deshaun Watson misses another game this upcoming weekend for the Cleveland Browns. And he was directly asked about whether or not he actually wants to play, given the time that he's missed, even though he came back and played to start the game last week in Indianapolis. And his quote, I see all the narratives, this and that. I'm fine. I'm happy. I'm not happy with the injury. But why would I do that? None of those national people know me. They don't talk to me. All that is speculation. It ain't coming from me. Then all that other bleep is bull, you know what. Are they going to end up putting him on IR?
I don't believe that they are.
Okay.
IR puts him out for 4 weeks, and I don't think that this is a 4-week injury. Typically what happens is teams put people on IR when it's going to be, for sure, 4 weeks or more. And that's originally this was supposed to be a 4 to 6 week injury. He came back in week 4. Apparently now they're resting on the idea that he probably needed 5 or 6. So there is that. What I would say to you relative to does Deshaun Watson want to play? Of course he wants to play. He needs to change the subject. And the subject so far has been, Deshaun, you kind of suck, brother. You're kind of stealing their money. He is going to make $91.4 million by the end of this season. And that's in 2 years. He's thrown 11 touchdown passes and 8 interceptions. So does Deshaun Watson want to have a career where he's happy with a lot of money, but his reputation as an NFL player is trash? I don't think that's where his mind is at. You can argue it was already trashed by the whole massage issue and the sexual harassment and even sexual abuse issue. He has been working to rid himself of that reputation. The last thing that this guy wants to do is heap another "you suck" kind of reputation on yourself by looking like a quitter or some guy that's not trying hard enough.
What's going on with the Bills? They can't rely on what they've done best offensively and putting points on the board. And tonight they will host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that, for whatever reason, can't win at home, but have won some games on the road. And Baker Mayfield's playing, and Josh Allen's playing, but it doesn't seem like you can just rely on Josh Allen to go out and win games when the Bills are in a tight one.
I think we've talked about this in the past, and the brain drain that has happened in the Buffalo building, I think, is something that cannot be underestimated. If you want to go back to the 2021 season, the 2022, January 2022 playoffs, where Josh Allen threw 9 touchdown passes in 2 games without an interception, threw for over 600 yards, and the Bills got eliminated basically because the Kansas City Chiefs had 13 seconds remaining and they turned it into magic. And that's the reason that the Bills were eliminated, not because Josh Allen hadn't put them on his shoulder and carried them. That moment, Josh Allen looked like he was on the verge of not just superstardom, but like all-timer type stuff, because it looked like nothing worked against him. He could not be stopped. He had figured it out, and there was no defense against that. Fast forward a couple of weeks, and Brian Daboll is gone to the New York Giants. He took the quarterback coach, the general manager left, the assistant general manager left. It's like a lot of stuff left the Buffalo Bills building that affected Josh Allen, and I think we're seeing the ramifications of that. Allen is an inconsistent guy the last 2 years. He's been among the NFL leaders in interceptions. Still great, still supremely talented, but something is off, and it's up here, and he doesn't have the guy to tell him, hey, stop thinking like this, think like that. Instead, let me do the worrying about where your head needs to be at. If I want your head to be somewhere, I'll put it there. Now what you have is Josh Allen wondering, where should I have my head? And that's a bad place to be as a quarterback.
Armando, has the fire sale started in Nashville with the Titans, with the Kevin Byard trade to the Eagles? Do you foresee other moves before the trade deadline? Maybe Derrick Henry, maybe DeAndre Hopkins. Do you think this is the start of the full reset now for the Titans?
They aren't denying that there's going to be a fire sale. They're not denying that there's no one that has said Derrick Henry will be here. Right?
That's right.
Yep.
And the reason that no one has said Derrick Henry will be here is because there's a possibility Derrick Henry won't be there. Typically, teams hate distractions, hate narratives outside the locker room that could affect the thinking within the locker room. And that is definitely one of them now that Kevin Byard is gone, because that was a good player, a former Pro Bowler, a former All-Pro, a team leader, one of the brothers, okay, in the brotherhood. When you lose that, when you trade that, other guys are looking around going, if they could trade that guy, could they trade this guy, being me? And so anyone that is saying that absolutely not, it's not happening the rest of the way with Tennessee, I haven't heard that from Tennessee.
Same. Armando, interesting matchup on the West Coast. San Francisco coming off 2 straight losses. Sam Darnold, the likely starter with Brock Purdy in concussion protocol. And they're hosting the Cincinnati Bengals that are trying to pick up the pace after a slow start with a banged-up QB. It's certainly not an AFC versus AFC or NFC versus NFC opponent here, but it is kind of a gauge to see where both clubs are around the midway point of the season.
So a couple of things. Brock Purdy is actually pushing to play. He practiced today.
Wow.
which is with a concussion. So he's out on the practice field, as a matter of fact, as we speak. And that is quite interesting because I was talking to Dr. Chow, who everybody on social media knows as Pro Football Doc. He is going to start a weekly injury column on OutKick, and it will debut tomorrow morning. And I'm writing it. I've already written it. It's done. And I can give you a preview of it in that the doc doesn't believe that Brock Purdy should play this week. And he doesn't believe that he will. So the fact that Brock Purdy on the one hand is practicing and on the other hand, is in the concussion protocol, and Pro Football Doc is saying that's a no-no, don't play this week. That's going to be very interesting to see how it plays out.
And it's a short week, by the way. Short week for the 49ers.
Exactly. So how is this? First of all, it's very strange. It was not during the game. He wasn't taken out during the game. It wasn't reported during the game. The independent expert didn't buzz down and go, the spotter didn't say that guy. But after the game, latent concussion symptoms are not good. That's a classic sign of you're not playing next week, young man. And yet, like I said, he's practicing today.
Are you buying into the phrase, don't look now, but here come the Minnesota Vikings to the playoffs?
No. You guys do this to me every year.
Well, we did it with Detroit last year, and you're on the board with Detroit this year.
Yeah,
you're
on board this year. Slowly turning you back to the Vikings, Armando. See how our Jedi mind tricks work on you? If we say Vikings enough, eventually you'll be a believer in Kirk Cousins.
Armando, they have the longest winning streak in the NFC currently at 2 games. Give them some credit.
Okay, I don't think it's the Jedi mind trick. I believe you're trying to get me with the banana in the tailpipe trick. That's the one that I see here, and I refuse to, grab the banana. I'm not going to do that. Look, Kirk Cousins, I talked about this with Donovan McNabb, who knows a little something about quarterback play on the 5 spot. And Donovan McNabb thinks that Kirk Cousins is a top 10 quarterback. And his stats actually suggest he's a top 5 quarterback, right? But then you see him play. And there are 2 or 3, or sometimes on a bad day, 4 throws that you just look at during the game and go, oh, no. That's not good. That's bad. And that's the reason that nobody says he's elite. If he makes 2 of those throws, he's elite. Look, I'm sorry. The Lions are the team in that division right now. I know they lost to the Ravens. I just think the Vikings had a great run last year where they won like 11 games or 12 one-score games. That's not likely to happen. There's a thing called regression to mean, and that
we're seeing it.
That's applying to the Vikings.
Armando Salguero, always great work at OutKick.com, senior reporter and writer for the NFL. Armando, great to have you back on, man. Have a great rest of the week, and enjoy Thursday night football tonight.
Thank you, gentlemen. Be well.
We will be checking
Highlight
out the 5
of the week,
spot.
Armando. Every week.
Check out the
when
5
you join
spot
us.
with
Highlight.
Donovan McNabb and Armando Salguero.
One NFC North team at a time for Armando. We pulled him into the Lions. We're going to slowly pull him in for the Vikings also. It will happen. May take some time, but it's going to happen.
John Brice of FootballScoop.com is about to join us with the latest and trying to untangle the details of how Michigan and sign stealing could link up to other programs that won big at the end of last season. That's next on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick network.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump, now at least have to see like senile, not all there. Probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself. I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California. And I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be the stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for?
Absolutely not.
What about RFK Jr.?
No.
Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course. Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, like who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm going to go Ron DeSantis.
Okay. Why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro.
There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm going to say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
Because Game of Thrones is all about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Yeah, baby, I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well.
Yeah.
And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mic with Hutton Withrow rolls on across the OutKick network. Chad, it's pretty clear in the NCAA rule book for college football, you're not supposed to scout off campus,
Off-site, yep.
Off-site, and do so with a recording device like a phone or anything, quite frankly. What gets me on the Michigan story with all the sign stealing and Connor Stallions is the amount of planning and direct detail that went into doing exactly that.
Intelligence, as he listed in his bio. The intelligence it took.
But not even trying to hide it.
No.
Not even trying to.
Brazen.
Due to showing up in Michigan gear and doing this as an employee.
Yeah. And people were spotting them. He was sending Venmos under his name, receiving them. He was buying tickets under his own name. He's a listed member of the Michigan football staff on their website.
Yes.
There was no effort to truly hide this from anyone.
Well, on top of it is John Brice, footballscoop.com, with plenty of detail that has been added from him. There's Washington Post, SI, and much more with reporting that's gone on, either digging up video or just the alleged damning evidence that continues to surface what seems like every other hour, just about. John Brice joins us from Football Scoop. John, great to see you, man. Hope things are well.
Yeah, always good to visit with you guys. I guess I've known you about 15 or so years now, which either means we're old or we're somehow surviving. So
both. I think we're old and we're also somehow still alive. So that's good news for all of us, for sure.
John, how many layers are there to this already? It goes beyond just Connor Stallions. What have you found out, and what have you been told behind the scenes that you've reported on at footballscoop.com in regards to possible other programs using this intel, this intelligence?
Yeah, I think the number one key, and you guys just alluded to it, is the depth of this, the specter of just how far reaching it has been, and the fact that I don't believe it's isolated to people who are still currently just on the University of Michigan staff, not based on phone calls I've had today from people in the ACC, people in the Big Ten. This thing continues to see its tentacles reach deeper and deeper. For me, from my standpoint, obviously the story was unfolding last weekend. Monday, as I was traveling across the country, I got a message actually from somebody there in Nashville who has no affiliation with any program and just said, Brice, you need to check on Stallions buying tickets to Tennessee, Kentucky. And so I alerted my boss at Football Scoop. We worked together as a team to try and continue to working on that. He had already been talking to some people around the sport, particularly in the Big Ten footprint. And very soon after that, it came out that Michigan, and we referred to this on our Tuesday Football Scoop podcast, that Michigan was not only scouting its Big Ten opponents, it was scouting potential opponents as it pertained to the CFP. And particularly within that, it was scouting both Tennessee and the University of Georgia.
I think the initial response to this, Brice, was kind of oh, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. Everybody tries to steal signs. Not a big deal. Then as it started to unfold, people took it more seriously. You talk to a lot of people in college football. What has been the consensus with the reaction to it? Are other coaches angry? Are they not as upset about it? Do they think this is way above and beyond what normally goes on? What has been the response?
Yeah, so from an on-record standpoint, I would point specifically, and I wrote about this yesterday, Bob Stoops' comments on an Oklahoma radio show saying he'd never heard or seen anything like this in his entire career, and talked about how it could not happen, how outrageous it was, how wrong it was. I would also point to Matt Rule's comments earlier this week, the Nebraska coach, on the record for what he said about it, very strong as well. And then on the flip side of that is, let's see, at 4:08 today, I had an SEC assistant coach reach out to me, and we had a quick conversation. And he said, he goes, Brice, listen, dog, like everybody cheats for players. Everybody cheats to try and steal signs, but we don't cheat the game. And I think that's the biggest thing. That to me was the best phrase I've heard for it. We don't cheat the game. You don't cheat the game. And coaches that I've talked to very adamantly talk about this being cheating the game. If everything that's alleged, even half of it is proved true, then the overwhelming consensus from every coach I've spoken to is that it's cheating the game. And I think, frankly, that's what has so many coaches pissed off, is that they feel like it's cheating the game. It's not standing on second base and trying to figure out what the catcher is signaling in to help the batter at the plate. It's so much more advanced than that. You called it, almost spying or coordinated effort. It's really like a covert operation, in my opinion. And yet they have been brazen in not making it covert.
Let's get, and you're right about being brazen and not covering anything up, which leads to a pretty big electronic paper trail in all of this. Let's get to the source of this investigation, the report about the law firm that has the information that was on the Michigan football computers in all of this. There's obviously someone behind the investigation with the law firm that's looking into this. Have you learned anything about that? Is it reasonable to believe that this also ties back to the investigation that ended with Matt Weiss getting fired at Michigan as quarterbacks coach?
There is reason to believe it very much could. I have not been definitively told that, but very clearly this third-party firm has gained access to Michigan hard drives, and nobody is quite, or cloud servers, and nobody's quite sure exactly how that access was obtained. So there is that possibility. I've been asked that question by coaches today. Does it particularly reflect directly to the Weiss situation? I don't know that for sure, but that is certainly very much a question that's being posed out there.
John, how much was Michigan spending on this endeavor? That was clearly successful in many ways based on what we've seen or heard or results on the field last year.
Thousands and thousands of dollars. And I would point to and give credit to the VolQuest message board. Obviously, that's a former stop of mine, but not just VolQuest. A friend of mine who covers the University of Notre Dame sent me a message board post from Irish Sports Daily maybe 3 weeks ago that said, JB, you need to check into this. And it was a guy on a Notre Dame message board saying his buddy was being paid by Michigan to go scout, I think, a Rutgers game and to film signals and do all this stuff and provide basically a scouting report for Rutgers. And again, the illegal component of it is the advanced scouting, the filming of it, the doing so in person. I can't stress enough how many coaches this week have told me, listen, dude, we all try to steal signals every single Saturday. And I've personally known people there in the SEC who have been responsible on game days for trying to steal signals. I still know people around college football who on Saturdays, their role on the sideline is trying to steal signals. Again, coaches believe that's gamemanship. That's part of it. Marcus Freeman said today, the Notre Dame head coach, and I thought this was a great comment. He said, look, we go into every game and we just assume that they have our signals. And so we self-scout and try to respond according to that. I just think this is so much different. And they've been, again, once again, flaunting it, flagrant with it, and they've spent a lot of money to do so, according to all the records.
In talking to people around college football and people you discuss stories with, what's been the consensus on the South Carolina piece of this? It could be obviously just a crazy coincidence, but you've got Shane Beamer, who's been involved in something like this before back in 2014 when he was at Virginia Tech. You've got a team that looked bad all season before the Tennessee and Clemson game, and they've looked pretty bad since those two performances. You've got wristbands for the first time on the season when they played Tennessee defensively. There's a lot of little things going into this that doesn't take a genius to connect the dots and start to speculate some. Has there been speculation or any accusations being made from those you've talked to across the sport in regard specifically to South Carolina, who did play two teams that we now know Michigan was scouting as a potential college football playoff opponent?
There certainly have been those accusations. I've heard it from multiple unconnected people to one another, and not people with the University of Tennessee, which I think is very interesting in and of itself. The other thing I would point out that has been stressed to me in all of this is not just that Michigan wasn't just scouting or attempting to gain illicit sign-stealing information for its Big Ten opponents and potential opponents in the CFP. It was also worried about jockeying for position in the CFP, particularly after Tennessee beat the University of Alabama. The people that I've talked to this week said at that point in time, Michigan, that this sort of changed from Michigan's standpoint, allegedly, and that's when they started to take Tennessee much more seriously. And that's, again, why I got the text earlier this week saying, check into Connor Stallions, potentially buying tickets for that Tennessee-Kentucky game.
Are you surprised that teams don't change signs and signals more often?
It's really hard. Again, Matt Rule making the point, like, I don't know why coaches vote against headset communication because it would eliminate a lot of this. And I definitely think that's going to change, and we can touch on that in a second. I am surprised, but also, again, guys, let's remember there's supposed to be a 20-hour rule, whether it's followed or not, but there's still only so much information that these student athletes can log on any given week. And also, you've got at times 4 different people or more on the sidelines who are doing signals. So, Mark Freeman made a point. Yeah, you change signals, but if your guy forgets who's the live signaler and looks at the wrong guy, Freeman's direct quote was, "It can be catastrophic consequences for your team." And so I think it's not just as easy as changing the signals, again, because it is so involved and so elaborate. Marcus Freeman said they change them about twice a year.
Okay. And I wonder if TCU did it right before they played Michigan.
Well, do you have any evidence, or have you heard that they even scouted TCU, that Michigan did at any point?
No. It was indicated to me this afternoon that it was not believed that they did scout TCU. So I have not confirmed that one way or the other, but it was just in a phone call this afternoon. Someone said, well, I guess they scouted Tennessee and Georgia, but didn't bother to scout TCU, and it ended up biting them in the butt. That's a direct quote.
And that's a team and a program that was atop the rankings throughout the season, Chad. That's what's so surprising.
Well, and just to clarify, because you said that the more people you talk to, the accusation is it wasn't just about scouting potential opponents. It was about jockeying for position for the college football playoff. That's pretty damning, considering now you're talking about espionage to help other teams knock teams off that are in front of you, possibly. Is that the belief from some coaches you've talked to across the country? I think we froze up with John.
John Brice has been our guest. Great work over at footballscoop.com, adding some perspective here for us. And he,
I'd love to know the answer to clarify that question.
Yeah, that's
again, direct quote
the next level,
from
right?
John in that on a question we asked him was, there's a belief among coaches, and he said not coaches at Tennessee, that there were scouting efforts done not just to prepare for potential opponents, but to jockey for position. And the Tennessee stuff started the moment Tennessee beat Alabama, because then suddenly they were a threat to be above Michigan in the college football playoff.
Yeah, and we've got about a minute left here if John's with us. John, did you hear the question that Chad asked you?
One more time, please. I'm not sure what happened, but I apologize if it was on my end.
That's all good.
No, you're good.
Just keep in mind about 60 seconds here.
Jockeying for position, right? That's what you said about. That's the belief of some coaches. This was not just done to scout other opponents, but maybe to help knock other opponents out of the way, right?
Yes, Michigan was very concerned, according to people who have reached out to me, and we'll see how much this can be clarified. But according to people who reached out to me, Michigan was very concerned with who it could potentially be jockeying with or fighting for a playoff berth with.
In case for the second potential team of the Big Ten, trying to come up with all those scenarios there.
Yeah, would it be a second SEC team? Would it be a second Big Ten team?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. John, great stuff, man. Thanks for working us in on your schedule, short notice, and let's catch up soon.
Yeah, let's do it, guys. You're longtime pros. I appreciate the opportunity. Take care.
Yeah, man.
Thanks,
Same to you.
Brice. Appreciate you.
John Brice, footballscoop.com is where you can read his reporting, which, again, he's updating things just like Trey would be doing with all the news that's following. It's amazing how quickly this gets this spreads to like the different layers, Chad, as the sports media and quite frankly, fans on message boards start digging and digging.
This is next level that we're getting into right now. We're going to discuss more about it a little bit later, maybe to end the show.
Yeah.
We're getting into now tinkering with the world and not just being a secret agent for yourself. This is like American intelligence going into other countries and setting up shadow governments. Michigan is affecting all of college football if these allegations are true, and they should be able to prove it if they've got the hard drives.
One big thing on every NFL game is next on Hot Mic with Ed and Withrow.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement. And today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Just like that, the final hour is here on the Thursday edition of Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Coming up in 20 minutes, Ryan Leaf will join us. Chad, how would you describe today's show?
Fast-paced.
Discussing Michigan and...
riveting, thought-provoking, somewhat scandalous at times.
Yeah, the layers to Connor Stallions.
I'm no conspiracy theorist most of the time. I tend to shy away from conspiracy theories, but this South Carolina connection thing,
it is crazy
with Michigan and with Beamer's past and with those two games,
and with
just keeps screaming out to me.
And then Trey Wallace, who joined us earlier, spoke to sources who tell him it's that South Carolina's program is denying this, absolutely did not happen. But I mean, all of the coincidence and the paper trail from Michigan, and then being able to see what happened, and knowing just based on other reports like John Brice, who's saying like many think that they could have tried to help out opponents that were going to be playing possible college football playoff opponents or teams in their way to get into the college football playoff if they weren't going to end up beating Ohio State, for instance. What would happen there? It is bizarre, crazy, and I mean, who knows what to believe, Chad? Because we're also looking back at a message board post from December for Arnie Palmer, or whoever, whatever the username is.
Well, there is a pretty strong Nashville connection here with the Arnie Palmer post, Matt Weiss being a former Vanderbilt player, Josh Gaddis, who was the offensive coordinator, being a former Vanderbilt assistant, the game in Nashville at Vanderbilt. That was the leak of this information also. John Brice used the phrase jockeying for position, that it became not just about scouting potential opponents for Michigan, but about their concern about being in the right spot in line to be in the college football playoff. That is a damning allegation. We don't have proof of anything yet. As of right now, these are just coaches talking to Brice.
What he's been told, yeah.
That this is the talk in the coaching community that was going on when you look at who they were scouting and then some of the things that happened after they scouted them. Look, I'll continue to state this. If the Washington Post report is true and that an outside third-party counsel has all the information on devices and computers within Michigan football, all of this stuff will come out in the wash eventually.
Yeah. Yep.
I also think that eventually Connor Stallions will speak. And when that happens, we're going to get a lot more information. But this, to me, takes this scandal way past where it was before, if true. Because it goes from we're just doing everything we can to get creative about how we win games to we are now going to take that approach that's against the rules, and we are going to negatively affect other teams that's not even on our schedule in order to ensure our spot in the pecking order. That is an enormous scandal that we haven't seen in college football in quite some time, if it can be proven. So we'll continue to monitor this story. You'll get all the latest right here on our show.
That's right. Chad, no team on a bye week this week across the NFL in Week 8. And unders are still the play if you're going to outkick.com/bet. At 64, 41, and 1. So 61% of the time, the under is hitting in the NFL this season. It's the best win percentage for unders through 7 weeks in the wild card era. And the tight games. Since the Monday night game in Week 6, 24 of the last 29 NFL games have been decided by, or have been a one-score game in the fourth quarter. And it's been that way for 70% of the games in the NFL this season. If you want to play the under, you can head over to PointsBet, outkick.com/bet. If you haven't taken a shot with PointsBet, now is the perfect moment. Big reason why. Exclusively for first-time PointsBet users, grab this unique offer. Right now, new PointsBet users can get up to $1,000 in second-chance bets. If your first bet doesn't go as planned, PointsBet has your back with a second chance. Get this offer by visiting outkick.com/bet. You complete the registration process with PointsBet. Make your first bet. If your first bet happens to lose, well, that's when the second chance bets come into play. Remember, terms and conditions apply. You've got to be 21 or older in legal gambling states. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Head over to outkick.com/bet to snag this offer. It is time for one big thing on every NFL game. And we start with Thursday Night Football. The Bucs enter at 3-3. The Buffalo Bills hosting Tampa Bay. They're 4-3 now. The Bills 0-3 this season when they don't rush for 100 yards in the game. The Bills have lost as many games through 7 weeks as they did all of last season, and they've been outscored 30-10 in the first half of these last 3 games. 2 of those last 3, of course, losses. Last week against the Patriots, Josh Allen, he averaged just 6.5 yards per attempt, and that was after he averaged just 5.6 yards per attempt against the Giants. This is not your last year's version or the year prior version of the Buffalo Bills offense.
Yeah, and you can just chalk it up to frustration or whatever from Josh Allen postgame, but his comments were a little bit concerning. It was kind of a, hey, it's not was we have the people in the locker room to fix this. It was more of a almost Jonathan Allen-like response from the Commanders postgame where he just says, I'm tired of saying this. I mean, it feels bleak right now. I don't know what to do because it continues to happen over and over again, and we got to get it fixed. They need to get it fixed starting tonight.
Florida teams have historically struggled whenever they travel to Buffalo. Jags, Bucks, Dolphins, a combined 7-23 straight up against Buffalo, in Buffalo, over the last 20 years. Take that for note on a short week. Buccaneers' run game, non-existent, and that's been that way for the last 2 years or so. Maybe they could be in a mix over the weekend for a trade. They're being rumored and linked up with Tennessee and Derrick Henry. Texans and Panthers. Panthers hosting Houston. Both teams are coming off of a bye. It's the battle of the top 2 draft picks, Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. And by the way, the 3rd overall pick will also be in this game. It's the first time in a game that it features the top 3 selections from the most recent NFL draft. And in Frank Reich's coaching career, he's coached 4 games coming off a bye. His teams are 4-0 in those games. Rams are hitting the road. They are in Dallas. Dallas coming off of a bye week. Dallas 4-2. Sean McVay's team has lost only 1 game by more than 1 possession. It was a 9-point loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. All of its 4 losses are to teams currently no worse than 500 this season. Vikings and Packers on Sunday. Minnesota traveling 278 miles to Green Bay. And I mentioned this with Armando. Minnesota owns the NFC's longest active winning streak of 2 games. Minnesota rookie wide receiver Jordan Addison, he's tied for 2nd in the NFL with 6 touchdown receptions this season. And the Vikings still have not scored a rushing touchdown. Meanwhile, Green Bay, they made it 4 straight games now where they've scored 3 or fewer points in the first half. First time that's happened since 1990. And Green Bay, Chad, has been outscored 63-6 in the first half of these 4 games.
Hutton's back in on the Vikings, too. Back in. This would be a big one in division and one they need because they have looked a lot better than the Packers recently.
Indianapolis staying in Indy, hosting the Saints this week. The Colts are the only NFL team to score 20 points, at least 20 points, in every game this season. When Gardner Minshew, when his opponents, when he scores more than 20 points, when the opponent does, Gardner Minshew is 1-15 straight up. Not putting up many points unless the defense is helping him. And for the first time in 3 overlapping games, Jonathan Taylor, he was more efficient than Zach Moss on the ground and in the passing game. And it's been roughly a 50-50 split since Taylor came back. I think that probably changes on Sunday.
I think it's going to morph to 60-40, then eventually 70-30 Taylor. But Zach Moss has been really good. That's a nice 1-2 punch in the backfield.
The Dolphins are 5-2 coming up the loss in Philly. They're hosting New England, who enters off of a win against Buffalo. Tyreek Hill, he leads the NFL with 902 receiving yards, 7 touchdown receptions. He's 3rd in his ranking with 53 catches on the season. And Miami just learned that they're the in-season locker room and team for Hard Knocks.
Which thrills us.
And doesn't thrill Tua and company, apparently. The Giants and Jets. The Giants have scored 17 total points in 3 home games this year. Jets, of course, also share the stadium with them. Zach Wilson became the first player since the NFL merger to record the worst passer rating 2 years in a row last season. And this year, he currently has the third worst passer rating in the league. It's ahead of Daniel Jones and Ryan Tannehill.
Plenty of time, Zach, to pick that up.
No doubt.
And make it a trifecta. 3 for 3.
Just
3
hold
years
on,
in a row.
Hold on strong
We got
until
plenty of
Rodgers
weeks.
comes back.
We got plenty of weeks for that passer rating to lower. And you can do it. Come on, Zach. Let's make it happen. 3 years in a row. I kid because I'm actually all in on the Jets. Doing enough to be in the playoff hunt when Aaron Rodgers may come back miraculously later this year.
The Jaguars are 5-2. The Steelers are 4-2. Jacksonville's defense, 16 takeaways through 7 games. The Steelers have played 41 straight games without reaching 400 yards of offense. The Fire Canada chants continue there. And in 6 games this year, the Steelers have gone 4-0 when George Pickens finishes with 75 yards receiving or more, and they're 0-2 when he doesn't. Feed him the football. Will Levis makes his NFL debut for the Titans. Tennessee host Atlanta on Sunday as Arthur Smith returns to Nashville with the Falcons as head coach. Since Mike Vrabel was hired as head coach in 2018, the Titans have not lost a game following their bye week. They're going 5-0 during this stretch. They're one of 4 NFL teams that have won every game following their bye week since 2018. That's Kansas City, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and, of course, the Titans with Vrabel. And the Titans, by the way, they have allowed 8 yards per pass attempt to opposing quarterbacks. And they also give up, they've been good on run, under 4 yards per carry. But Desmond Ridder is looking for his fourth straight game now. He's had 3 straight games for over 250 yards passing. So can Ridder carve them up? That's what quarterbacks have done against this Titans defense.
It's a pretty good coaching stat, by the way. Winning coming off a bye week. Those coaches you mentioned that have done it, Sean McDermott, Mike Vrabel, Mike Tomlin, Andy Reid. Pretty good 4-pack of coaches.
Eagles are on the road against the Commanders. Since 2022, Jalen Hurts is 9-0 with teams coming with a winning record. Here's the Commanders at 3-4, however. Eagles are 13-1 over the last 2 seasons in the months of September and October. And Sam Howell, he's been sacked 40 times so far this season. That's the most in the NFL. Late afternoon, Seahawks and Browns. According to Hall of Fame voter Tony Grossi, Myles Garrett was responsible last week for 17 of the Browns' 39 points, 2 sacks, 2 strips, a block kick, and the strips led to 2 touchdowns. And, of course, he blocked the field goal there, too. Cardinals and Ravens. Kyler Murray, a full participant in practice, tore his ACL 10 months ago, but he can make his 2023 debut on Sunday. Lamar Jackson, coming off his best performance of the season, he is 16-1 for his career against the NFC. And when he plays for the Ravens are 50-18. Dude wins, and he certainly wins against the NFC. Broncos and Chiefs in Mile High. You've got Kansas City at 6-1. They're going to win the division, and that's because the rest of the division is awful. Chargers, Raiders, and Broncos are a combined 7-13 and a minus 129-point differential. And the Chiefs have won 13 consecutive division games. They get it done in the AFC West. The Niners hosting the Cincinnati Bengals. Chad, Christian McCaffrey, he has more touchdowns than the Giants, the Titans, Jets, Bengals, Steelers, and Buccaneers offenses.
Good for Christian McCaffrey. Tough for those other teams you just named.
That's right. Chargers are back home again. Sunday Night Football, Chargers and Bears, a battle of 2 two-win teams. Over the last 3 games, Justin Herbert completing 57% of his passes, 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, a 75.9 passer rating. And Tyson Bagent, he wins game 1, and now he's in prime time.
Hutton, this is what I like to call an Al Michaels special, because formerly he was on Sunday Night Football, and this is a game made for Prime Video. This is a game that Al Michaels would half-heartedly call for Amazon Prime with this matchup of 2-win teams, the Bears and Chargers. This is a truly bad Sunday Night Football matchup, one of which it's rare to find on Sunday Night Football to find one this bad at this point in the season.
Bagent with a win on Sunday night. He could become the second undrafted rookie quarterback to win his first 2 starts. Only Devlin Duck Hodges in 2019 holds that distinction. Lions at 5-2. The Raiders, they need to win. They're 3-4. Monday Night Football's matchup between Detroit and Las Vegas. If Jimmy Garoppolo returns to action for the Raiders, Detroit can get after him. If Garoppolo misses, well, we just saw what happened with Hoyer and Aiden O'Connell. They lost by 18 to the Chicago Bears. Hoyer has lost 13 straight starts in the league, and the Raiders have not won a road game at night since 2017. 6 straight losses. They've been in primetime quite a bit. A lot of that due to Gruden, and some of that due to just Raider Nation that travels and tunes in. But in this case, it's a lot like the stat we referenced last week about Kirk Cousins in primetime. He was 2-10, I believe.
And guess what he did?
He won.
Beat the 49ers.
He won.
Hutton, excellent work, as always.
That's one big thing on every NFL game.
Yeah. One of the segments I look forward to every week. Terrific.
We also look forward to our Visit Weekly with Ryan Leaf. He hops in next.
He crushes it.
He absolutely does. Ryan is joining us in a matter of minutes right here on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump now at least have to see like senile, not all there. Probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself. I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California. And I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be the stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for?
Absolutely not.
What about RFK Jr.?
No.
Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course. Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm gonna go Ron DeSantis.
Okay, why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro.
There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm going to say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
Because Game of Thrones is all about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Yeah, baby, I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well. Yeah. And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Sixth and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Glad you're with us. Chad, is the chat on fire today?
Chat's on fire. I would like to request no more Sweet Home Alabama played by Colin
ever
again. I'd like to make that official request, please. Other than that, though,
you are a Tennessee fan.
Chat's been great. Yeah, it's just not. I don't know. I'm okay with some Lynyrd Skynyrd. I'm just not good with that song. Something about it. Something about it really makes my skin crawl.
You can have the veto power on that.
Much like this whole Jim Harbaugh story starting to make my skin crawl a little bit. Chat's been on fire throughout the day, Hutton. People have strong opinions.
What's interesting is people have strong opinions, but I think the vast majority of fans are just kind of, everybody's stealing sign. But this is they're going to extreme lengths to do it, and violating the one specific area of the rule that they can't do. That's the difference. And I have thought to myself, too, what would this story be if this were Alabama or Georgia?
I think it's about as big, with Michigan.
Well, it's big. It's a massive,
it's a massive
everyone's
banner program.
But would it be treated like true, downright cheating? Instead of just kind of it's frowned upon, but everybody's doing it. Because that's kind of the sentiment with this.
Here's the difference. If it was Georgia or Alabama, everyone would immediately jump to, well, of course, it's the SEC. Right. And look at this. Oh, back-to-back national champions. Bravo, Bulldogs. And stealing all those signs to do it. Or, oh, Nick Saban's dynasty at Alabama. Oh, you knew they were up to something. It would have been a lot of that. Michigan hasn't won a national title under Harbaugh. So a lot of people don't like Jim Harbaugh, but I think, Hutton, the difference in the response is it's more of this seems like a very calculated, orchestrated thing that hasn't paid off to the top level yet.
Right.
But what they're doing to try to break into that national championship club is what's going on.
Well, and I'm saying, it is big. With the layers added to it, everyone's changing their view on it, right? But even many of the coaches are just kind of, Everyone's trying to get an advantage.
And it's getting a bit of a mixed bag, though, right now, because we did have Kirby Smart yesterday at his press conference. He said, I have never heard of anything like this to this extent. He said, we used to coach when I was in high school, my dad coached. He said, we'd go watch teams play, but we're just writing down the plays they're running and drawing them out as we go. I've never seen someone pay someone or heard of this to go video the opponents and try to steal their signs.
And then you have Saban that went on McAfee today and said,
put an
I don't know that
in.
much about it. I'm not that in tune, but we need to have and they.
But then
that should be the solution.
They do. Now, here's what I don't want in all this. I don't want the end story of this to be, well, at least Michigan convinced everyone to put an earpiece in. They're the martyr in all this, but it was because of them that we now have an earpiece. I like some gray in sports, right? Every sport. And you can go through each one. They have their individual areas of the gray, right? Baseball, you can steal the sign if you're at second base looking back at the catcher, and if you get tipped off, it's fair. But if you're using electronic devices or banging on trash, obviously that's not fair, and that cheats the game. This is another one of those where initially I think everyone kind of rushed to, well, this is one of those gray areas, doesn't seem that bad. And as it's gone on, I think most are starting to turn and say, well, you do need some right and wrong. Everything just can't be, well, it's sports and we're trying to gain an advantage however we can, so all's fair. No, we do want to watch the games with some level of integrity. We do want to watch the games and feel like they're on the up and up to a level that no one's going above and beyond what the other team is doing. Now, if one team is more prepared than the other because they're doing everything possible, okay, great. But there's a difference between preparations and having a director of military intelligence within your program that's scouting every opponent.
Operations.
And the next level to this is what John Brice talked about with us, which is if they're taking that to try to gain an advantage over their opponents and pushing it to other opponents of their opposition to knock them off for the college football playoff. That's where this thing can really blow up.
Yes, and that's where it truly expands into a much larger spider web. Ryan Leaf joins us on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow here on the OutKick Network. He will be on the call for the world's largest cocktail party between Georgia and Florida.
That's a nice assignment.
Absolutely.
We've been down there, Hutton. Always a festive event with the red and the blue.
Yes,
straight down the middle. The coolest spot is the visual of both fan bases perfectly 50-50 in that stadium.
Ryan, good to see you, man. Hope things are well. And what do you make of the ever-evolving story with the Michigan Connor Stallions sign-stealing operations and now the depths at which and layers that we're beginning to see turn over through other reporting?
I think did I get freeze on you? Okay. I think that this is much to do about nothing, in my opinion.
Okay.
I think all the teams are doing it. I think that Michigan's just been better at it than everybody else. And frankly, is there a rule? I haven't seen the Big Ten rule about advanced scouting, so I don't know if there is. They haven't issued an investigation within the conference, which is the only thing I'd be worried about if I was Michigan. If it started in the conference or if the College Football Playoff Committee started using this as one of the criteria and when they're making their picks, because they easily could be the number one overall team in the College Football Playoff rankings next Tuesday night.
And there's the NCAA rule about off-site scouting.
There's no rule,
scouting.
Ryan, about not stealing signs. That's not a written rule. The rule is you can't scout off-site, which has been around since 1994.
With equipment.
So if you're there and a member of your staff is there videoing something, that's completely, again, that's the rule that's been violated.
But
NCAA rule and a Big Ten rule, I think.
Yeah, I would assume it's the Big Ten rule alongside it. Because if it was just the NCAA rule, if I'm Jim Harbaugh, I just look at the NCAA and say, get off my lawn. You guys, party planning, committee is what you really only do in March. And so I wouldn't pay much stock into that. We'll see what the Big Ten does. They have not yet initiated any sort of investigation. So if the conference hasn't done that yet, that leads me to believe that, when we talk about smoke and there's fire, I get it. But if the conference that it's in, with all the news, and the news has started all the way back in December, has yet to initiate any sort of investigation, then that leads me to believe that there hasn't been a lot of pressure to go off and do this right now.
Ryan Leaf, our guest, you certainly know the links that coaches will go to try to gain an advantage, programs, teams at any level. Any good examples of things that you have seen over the years that just, even if it doesn't truly give you an edge on the field, there's a sense that there's a mental edge with whatever the team is doing?
Or even something you thought another team was doing against the team you were playing on that you could allege that you saw.
We did. Well, when we were playing the Cal Bears, our run to the Roses, one of our offensive linemen came in midweek and he had spotted something on film. And we had a bye, so we were preparing for Cal a week out. And so, we had the film, and then, most of the guys were heading home for the bye week. So when they went back to the Bay Area, they went and watched a Cal football game. And I think they confirmed what we had thought. The defensive lineman had a tendency to line up with one hand when he was in a 3 technique, and when he was in a 3 technique with another hand down on the ground, it was indicative of a pass rush or I kind of run one, and we could call a play, or he could tap me on my side and let me know in the game, and I would change the play call where we would gash him. And, I threw 5 touchdowns and ran for 1 in that game. And I was pulled at halftime, like up 56-6, so it was, I don't think it necessarily, changed the direction, but it certainly gave us an advantage, and that was just really good work by one of my great offensive linemen, looking and being diligent in the film watching aspect of scouting. He just noticed something that a tell that a player had.
Ryan, you're usually either on the call for a college football game, and I know you're getting a chance to watch a lot on television as well. Just general observation, do you feel like officiating is worse right now in college football, or is it we're seeing more with a combination of rules experts and former officials either second-guessing or looking things on the broadcast also? Where do you think we are right now in terms of officiating across college football?
I'm not a big complainer of officiating. I feel like there's so many calls during a game that unless it's completely one-sided, which I rarely see it be, it's a difficult job to do, especially for guys that are not being paid to be full-time referees in this league, in this college world. Same with the NFL, to be frank. And so I don't pay too much stock to it. There's some, when we see some egregious calls, people point it out, of course, but if you go and from the moment that kicks off until the end of the game, there are so many opportunities. There's so many things that can go which way or the other. Everything's magnified in the last 2 minutes. And I think that's where we tend to look at so much. But I go back to that New Orleans Saints, Los Angeles Rams game in which, the Saints pretty much got screwed with a bad call. You go back and look at other calls in that game. And I said, if it went this way, they may have never even been in that position. You don't know. You have no idea. So I don't like to speculate until they ultimately go to, computerized, decision making around those things. There's nothing really you can do when human beings are out there trying to make the best possible decisions they can in the moment.
Ryan Leaf, our guest on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Lincoln Riley back at practice, but he's being treated for pneumonia for the USC Trojans. This is coming off of 2 straight losses for the Trojans and a difficult stretch coming up to finish, and they're playing Cal this week. Are we about to see USC go off a cliff here with 2 losses now and probably more, given the fact that they've got Washington, Oregon, and UCLA to finish?
Yeah, I think I was on this show a couple of weeks ago with you guys, and we were talking about it when they were going up against Notre Dame, that, out of the 6 final games, they had a real chance of maybe losing 3 of them. And it would start with that Notre Dame matchup, and certainly did. Now, they've been close in both of them. The Utah game was such a great football game. I don't know if you guys stayed up and watched it, but It was such a great football game to see Brice and Barnes be able to do that with the injuries that have plagued the Utah Utes. I thought that was huge. I did not think that this USC team was capable of being a college football playoff contender. I'm glad they did not get in last year. I'm glad Utah exposed them, because it could have been really embarrassing because that defense is so porous. And the things that we talked about is just really the negative. And unfortunately for Caleb Williams, he's just being asked to do too much now, right? And I don't care how great you are, unless you do what Cam Newton did years ago, where they ran the football and utilized like physical upfront types of things. You can't go backwards and backwards and backwards as a quarterback and ultimately figure it out. You'll make plays, and you'll make them to a point where you almost stay in the game. But yeah, I would suspect they probably lose to Oregon and Washington. But I tell you what, that those games also present a really great opportunity for Lincoln Riley to right the ship too for everybody. And if doing that, they would knock guys off where they could get themselves back into the conversation for the Pac-12 championship. And that's all they want. They want an opportunity to get back there. And they have the games ahead of them that allows for that. So if Washington comes down and they're able to beat them, that's a big deal. But also if Washington comes down and Michael Penix Jr. has a day, that may sew up the Heisman Trophy for him.
Ron, we've got about a minute left here. The game that you're going to be on the call for, Florida and Georgia, is this going to be a game? Graham Mertz has been pretty consistent for the Gators at quarterback. Can he do that against the Georgia defense?
He has. You're exactly right. Over 76% completion percentage, 12 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He had a huge game against South Carolina, coming off his best game as a Gator in Billy Napier's offense. I'd like to see it. Spread's only 14.5. That's not in the realm of what Georgia normally sits in these kind of games over the last few years. Also, good note, last time that Georgia lost a regular season football game, everybody, to Florida 3 years ago. So that was a much different team. Dan Mullins was the head coach. Kyle Trask was the quarterback. You had Kyle Pitts and Kadarius Toney out there. So it's much different look. I hope it's a good game. But early on, if Beck and those guys, shake loose, then that's the end of the story. If they shake loose, Florida's just not going to be able to keep up.
Ryan Leaf has been our guest. Always enjoy the visit, Ryan. Appreciate you as always. And glad you're feeling better, man. And we'll catch up next week. Enjoy Jacksonville.
Appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it. Get back out. I've never called this game. I've never been to this game. So I'm excited to see what it's all about. Yeah.
It's fun. Chad and I had the chance to go a couple years ago. It was better than I ever would have expected. Yeah, with the tailgating and everything. It was very cool. Very cool.
My wife just told me as we were driving here that told me to behave. I don't know what the hell that means, but
it's good advice.
All right.
It's good advice for sure.
We'll try to do the same on this end. All right.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Good to see you.
Thanks, man. Check out the Straight Line Pod, by the way, with Ryan Leaf and at Ryan D. Leaf on social. Always great analysis there. Coming up, we preview Thursday Night Football. Bills hosting the Bucks. Is Tampa going to pull the road upset and send Buffalo to 500?
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna lib. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human being. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
I made the call to end the Me Too movement. And today I'm going to continue making that case. And that's just a way to further taunt these women, to make them feel less than, to make them realize that this has just become a big joke. Deion Sanders is the Donald Trump of football.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Fast show today at 6 the Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Chad, go ahead and decree the weekend is here.
I forgot to do it at the start of the show. Shame on me for not decreeing the weekend's arrival. And Thursday on this show is the start of the weekend. So congratulations, everyone. You made it to the end of the week. Here we are. But we will have another show tomorrow on a weekend day. That's how hard we work. On a Friday. That's
right.
A weekend for us on this show. We're going to have fun on tomorrow's show, though, too. And we still got a little bit of time left in this one.
Chad's right. It's the weekend's here because football is here. Thursday Night Football, Buffalo hosting Tampa Bay. Right now, the spread is 9 in favor of the home team, the Bills, and the over-under at 43. And you can play this game at PointsBet. OutKick.com/bet is where you go. If you haven't taken a shot with PointsBet, now's the perfect time. And take advantage. First-time PointsBet users, grab this unique offer. Right now, new PointsBet users can get up to $1,000 in second-chance bets. If your first bet doesn't go as planned, PointsBet has your back with a second chance. Get this offer by visiting OutKick.com/bet. You complete the registration process with PointsBet, and you make your first bet. If your first bet happens to lose, that's when second-chance bets come into play. Remember, terms and conditions apply. You got to be 21 or older in legal gambling states. Gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. OutKick.com/bet is where you go right now to snag this offer. Chad, this is a Tampa offense that has a chance with Baker playing to put up some yards and some points because Buffalo's defense is banged up and they have surrendered points, drives, yards to back-to-back opponents that had no business doing that and maybe not scoring a ton of points by the opposition, but they stay on the field and keep Josh Allen on the opposite side of the field. But while Tampa may do just that against this Bills defense, where the stat on that, by the way, the Bills defense, they are surrendering 315 yards. Giants and Patriots both put up over 315 yards of offense. Even though Tampa may do that, this is also a Tampa secondary and pass defense that allows roughly 250 yards passing per game. Josh Allen, he is 0-2 this season when he turns the football over multiple times. If he can play a clean game, I would lay the points and take Buffalo -9 at home on a short week trying to get things right. It comes down to whether or not you trust Josh Allen can do that against Tampa's defense. But, again, Tampa's defense gives up a ton of yards in the passing department. And Buffalo does that pretty well, or they have been in recent years. They need to get that back on track at 4-3. I think they come out desperate at 4-3.
I do too. If I had to play the points, I would lay the points, take Buffalo to cover. Not going to do that. Going to go a little bit off the board. I'm going to bet with my heart here a little bit because I've now elevated this guy on my fantasy football team with Zach Ertz on IR.
Okay.
Dalton Kincaid was drafted to be a red zone touchdown scorer for the Buffalo Bills. I think he finds the end zone tonight, plus 220. Anytime touchdown for Dalton Kincaid of the Bills. I'm going to roll with that one. I'm placing the bet right now. You can place this bet like the game's already happened. You notice how all the talk radio guys that say, play this game as if it's already happened, they all sound exactly the same.
They do.
Like the gravel in their voice.
Well, we had that
saying it.
Over the years. We've had
critical information. Call this hotline.
There was
number.
one guy who changed his name. Like they just went from one name to the other. And then there was Jonathan Stone, who would always
Stone Cold Locks.
Yeah, Stone Cold Locks, and you could call in and get the information so you could lay a bet as if the game's already been played.
It's like this game has already been played. I like that one when they go with that. I like the how serious it sounds when they say critical information on such and such
Call
game.
this number.
Critical information.
Here's the voicemail.
Bills, Bucks. You have to call this number to receive that critical information. Like they're on the field. You're going to call someone on a cell phone. They're right there. I'm like, I'm watching this guy tape up his ankle right now. It doesn't look good. That's the critical information. I love those guys. They're always fun.
Keep in mind, the Bills are winless this season. They're 0-3 when they don't rush for 100 yards. Tampa Bay's run defense is really good. Third or fourth best in the NFL. That could play a factor here. But like we mentioned earlier this hour, Florida teams historically don't perform well on the road in Buffalo. 7-23 straight up in Buffalo for the Bucks, the Dolphins, and the Jaguars. I'm with you, Chad. I'm taking.
I think the Bills get right tonight.
I agree. It's time for us to get it right with our NFL elimination picks. With more, here's Davey Hudson.
Not good. That's more.
We got to get it right.
We all.
It's not been good for me for a while.
Through 7 weeks, we're all eliminated.
Yeah, Hut and I both had
with 2 chances.
2 teams go
Hutton,
down.
Can you define second chance for us? We all had a second chance.
We did.
And we failed with a second chance.
Yeah.
We were all eliminated.
Looking at the graphic now.
Good night, everyone.
Yeah. 2 weeks in a row for me. But, yeah, Hut had the Bills last week. I had the Packers. Things did not go as
Bills lost
planned.
to the Patriots. I mean, what?
I mean,
that was our lock, Hutton, and we didn't even confer on it, and we both went Bills minus 8. I think in that game, 8.5 as our lock of the week.
Now we're laying 9,
and they lost outright.
So we're all losers at the end of the day on this one. So we're starting anew, but we wanted to show you kind of how things ended. So everybody is back to 0, and for week 8, Chad has the first pick.
Oh, I'm a
Chad,
0, all right. I am 0, all right. I'm 0 and the wrong team favored in college football. I was the 0 that was eliminated first with these picks. I've been a 0 all fall. I can't get anything right. I have no clue what's going to happen. Davey asked me for my pick earlier today, and in a defeated way, I just said, hell, I don't know, the Ravens. So that's what I'll say to you right now. Give me Baltimore to beat Arizona. Last stand for Josh Dobbs. He'll probably come up big and upset Baltimore, but I'm going to go Ravens this week over the Cardinals.
MVP
I like that
Lamar. Do you think Kyler gets activated? I mean, he's been listed as a full participant in practice, and it's his now 2 weeks into his window for when he can be activated.
And if this was a Call of Duty tournament, they'd win, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's a football game.
Well, Arizona has lost 3 games in a row by 10 points or more. This is after they had started very competitive and losing games, but tight window ball games. And you have the record in your favor, Chad. 50-18 is the record for Lamar Jackson when he starts for Baltimore, and they're 16-1 against the NFC.
Well, let's make it 17-1.
I think. Well,
or Sunday, yeah.
Yeah, I think you will.
Well, guys, I will be going with the Detroit Lions. I just can't see this team playing as bad as they did against the Ravens, and credit to the Ravens for being elite. But this team, they have heart. They're going to bounce back. They're going to have a good performance. This is primetime Monday Night Football. I don't trust the Raiders. Jimmy Garoppolo's expected to be back, but the Raiders, they're just not good in primetime. Over the last 10 seasons, they're 1-8 when on the road in a primetime game. I don't anticipate them showing up and playing well. And the Lions, while the NFC North is looking a little bit more competitive with Minnesota rattling off a couple of wins, they need to make a statement here in front of the entire nation that they're not the team we saw last week against the Ravens, and I think they easily do that. They're an 8-point favorite, and so give me Detroit.
Think about the headlines.
Credit
Tuesday.
Davey, by the way, for saying Detroit. Like Forrest Gump.
Detroit.
Like Cleveland from Detroit. I like
Those
the D.
tags.
Emphasis on the
Texas
D in Detroit.
The pressure mounts a bit on Monday morning for Detroit. If Minnesota beats...
Now we're all going to catch ourselves trying to not say Detroit.
If Minnesota beats Green Bay, which I think they will, because that would put the Vikings at 4-4, and if the Lions, for whatever reason, lose to the Raiders, well, that would have them at 5 wins. They'd be 5-3 and 4-4, and all of a sudden, the division's back wide open. That would be quite the storyline going into Week 9, considering where we were 2 weeks ago with Minnesota. I'm taking the Miami Dolphins. I'm surprised that they were available on the third pick in sequence here. I mean, yes, New England won. They got their second win of the season and shocked me when they beat the Bills a week ago. Miami coming off the loss against Philly. They have not won against a team with a winning record, Miami. But they play a lot of teams with losing records, and they beat the crap out of them. That's what's going to happen here for the Miami Dolphins at home at Hard Rock Stadium, hosting Bill Belichick's 2-5 New England Patriots.
I like all those picks. I don't know what that says for any of them, quite frankly, for you guys.
Imagine if we go 0-3.
I hate that for you guys that I love those picks.
I expect a bounce-back game for the Dolphins, Hut, but I am just always hesitant when it comes to division games, and we're playing this game. except maybe the Chiefs.
Could have used that advice last week with the Bills and Patriots, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I'm not hesitant to pick Miami against bad opponents. I mean, in division, out of division, whatever.
I do like how you're going back to it a second straight week, in almost an act of defiance. The Patriots got you last week, got both of us last week against the Bills. You said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going right back in. They're not winning 2 in a row. Dolphins will get them this week. If it wasn't the Bills, it'll be the Dolphins this week. I like that level of perseverance. Good job.
Miami with a loss will be 5-3. I mean all of a sudden New England's 3-5. Does no one want the top number 1 overall pick? Is it just Carolina? Is there just you know what? Everyone.
I mean, New England's got Mac Jones. Why would they want a number 1 overall pick? Look at that guy. He's great. I mean, he's got the franchise quarterback.
I'm saying well, Carolina and Chicago with the trade, right? So you've got. But I'm saying like they're 0-6. They're hosting Houston.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are still trying to win right now for the most part, but
why is the trade deadline so early in the season?
That's a good question.
There's a lot of teams
could push it back a little bit
that still have that glimmer of hope, especially this year.
Well, didn't it used to be around like week 5?
I believe it was a little bit later as well at one point, but there was no extra movement.
There also was no
trades.
It
was
for
earlier
in
the season, yes.
Trading has become more popular, I feel like, in recent years. For years and years, the trade, it wasn't like Major League Baseball, buyers and sellers. NFL's trade deadline didn't mean anything. Now it does.
Chad,
back it up.
You're going to love what Nick Saban had to say about the sign stealing and the helmet communication, because this is the NCAA and the power conferences that are trying to cap name, image, likeness and trying to have federal legislation, right? They're crying poor, that they need to make budget and everyone needs to pay for all these programs that they have. Saban was like, look, if it's about cost with the earpiece and the helmet, that cannot be used as the excuse as to why every college football team can't have their quarterback with the hearing aid that allows them to communicate with their coach. He's right. If you want to put an end to this, they can, and they could have. They can. There's a remedy to this very easily. You ship these out. They could have these by Saturday in helmets.
Yeah, and you could do a separate rule for FBS and FCS. If the problem is like, we can't do it for every Division II, for every FCS, for every Division III. Okay, I get that to that extent, but you can do it for the 100-some-odd schools, 100-plus schools in FBS. It's complete BS to argue that you could not do it for those schools. You can. You can do that right away. I've yet to hear a coach that's against this.
Well, Saban's like, it should be a Power 5 rule.
Everyone has come back, at least the Power 5 coaches I've heard, and said, you want to cut out this and the attempt at doing this? Just put an earpiece in the helmet, something that's been around in the NFL since 1994. You could do that in major college football.
And then
I don't know why it's not
have
done.
an independent whoever monitoring it. So there's no, craziness going on when the road team all of a sudden has the football and the communication goes out, or it miraculously pops back on whenever the home quarterback takes to the field.
It's got to be a league-ruled type thing.
I will say, though,
where you've got, like you'd have a review official or whatever, you have to have an official in charge of it during the game. So no one with the home team is involved.
Late this past Saturday, late in Tuscaloosa, that stadium was hopping.
Yeah.
The quarterback's not going to be able to hear the communication device.
Mm-mm.
They're still going to have to look over for a sign or a signal. But by and large, this goes away, and there's no, gray area on what is considered, ethical versus what is illegal on the rule book. Just do away with it. No more sideline signs of like South Park characters where that determines what play you're going to run.
Real quick breaking news. The NCAA began interviewing low-level football staff. University police today confirmed they have partnered with the FBI into the investigation involving former OC Matt Weiss.
Wow.
FBI now involved.
Join us tomorrow, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern.